bring that little outfit.
Mine's right around it.
Sometimes it takes a couple minutes, sometimes it takes 6
Now, there's someone on the other end,
seconds.
have to like push a button, or just have to make a connection, turn on the DVD there. There we go. Okay, it being December 5th, 2017, this is the new Durham Planning Board. Scott Drummond, the chair. I'm going to let everyone else around the table here announce themselves as we normally do.
Bob Craycraft, member.
Rodney Doherty, Board of Selectmen representative.
Stop by Sal member.
Rick Goodrich, alternate.
And we have one excused absence here. Next idea is public comment. If anyone in the public has something to add to our discussion that is not on tonight's agenda. Paul?
Yeah, hi.
Introduce yourself.
Paul Ruslavicus, 253 North Shore Road. I do have some comments to be made that could also fit very well into old and new business. Because what happened was that I didn't know that you had moved the last meeting, so I listened to the conversations on video of your November 16, and I have some comments to make in that respect.
Okay.
Plus some additional suggestions for you folks that you might want to consider for inclusion in the warrant.
Okay, for zoning ordinance.
Yeah. So in deference to these two gentlemen who have specific things about specific needs, I can defer my comments to the old new business part.
Okay, that works.
Thank you.
Great.
Then you guys can take up.
Okay. Okay, next item then is, so we'll wait for Paul's comments for later. We have one informal consultation, sorry?
Do you want to swear, or do you want to appoint him to take Jeff's seat?
Yes, you're right, thank you. I'm sorry, your name, your formal name's Freeman, but?
Correct. I go by Rick.
Rick. Thank you. So, I'd like to, Rick, you can sit in for Jeff Allard's seat tonight.
Thank you.
I don't know if we'll make any formal decisions, but that's secondary. So, if we do, you're certainly up for that. So the next item on our agenda is an informal consultation with Kent Marantha, and Chris Edmonds, I believe, is our point person on that issue.
All right.
So
This
once
is
you
a good
go.
friend, John Scruton, who's been involved at Maranatha since soon after its beginning. I guess everybody knows about Maranatha. We've been there since '72, and have this is kind of just a few thoughts for you. You want to see it, Paul?
Sure. Right.
So we're here because we went for a building permit to rebuild where we had a mobile home. And at that time, at the very end, there was some concern that we weren't in the original footprint, building the original footprint, because it was a 14 by 70 trailer. So we've added a couple of feet to the length and a couple of 6 feet to the width. So that's why we're here.
Okay.
So he
So
was
you want to
concerned.
build a permanent structure in that place?
Right. Yes.
With a foundation of these
Yes.
footings?
Yep.
Be a full foundation or just footings?
No, it would be a full foundation.
Full foundation.
Yep.
And the building inspector suggested you come.
Well, he was just concerned because we weren't totally in the original footprint. And there is a pond there, which the years are there. We put the trailer there in '75 and we added the pond in '82.
Like a swimming pond.
Yeah, I got some pictures here.
Okay.
pond. Pass that around. There's a,
Okay, so you
Here's
have one
the
copy
site.
of each?
I've got just one copy
Okay,
of each.
we'll
yeah.
send them around
We'll
together.
send them around.
This is the site.
And that's the site, and, well, that's looking across the pond at the site. Yep. And, I tried to represent, and this is what we want to go 6 more feet, is what we're saying,
Okay.
beyond what we had before. And that, if it has 2 flags, that's the original length, is 2 foot more in length. And 6 foot more in width.
Okay.
So that's the sign.
Signs. No. I'm trying to figure if this steep slope, this is kind of a slope. So
Right.
I'm trying to understand.
All right, yeah, that slope is on the pond side. You're looking right over here at the sign would be on the street side. And what we're proposing with the foundation is we'd actually take the dirt out that we put there in 72 to make it level and to get more width. We added, and that's why you see some blocks and stuff. We added that fill in.
Okay.
So we'd just be removing what we already added.
Is this the same slope that you're talking about?
Sort of, yeah.
Yeah, yes, it
A
is.
couple different angles
Yes.
here, but
This one right here,
Yeah,
down the back
that-
side.
That's a
of that.
shed down on the ball field. Yeah,
Okay.
if you remember that.
And does that sit right on the pond, that shed?
No, that's down in the
John
ball
was
field.
also concerned on whether or not
Okay,
they needed
it's hard to
non-residential too.
I think there were several issues that we wanted to discuss before we were done. And it just had mentioned, one of the issues where the campground is a unique organization, does it need to have non-residential site review to replace that residential unit with another residential unit that's going to be used there on that site? So that's, and a second question is, do the setbacks for the proposed house to the water apply in a case of a man-made pond that's used for swimming? A third one is that slope in which there's gonna be a walkout basement, so the basement will come down and part of that slope will be removed and be the bottom floor of the unit. And my understanding is because it's well below the size to trigger a steep slope issue regarding your ordinance. So that's another issue that we want to do. And then the third one, or the fourth or fifth, whatever number I'm on now, sorry about that, is there is a impact fee for schools on a unit, because this unit's gonna be a little bigger than the unit, it's gonna be bigger than the unit it's replacing.
Mhm.
And the question is where this is not for, a family to live in year round, it's for
right,
someone
it's a
can't.
commercial,
Yeah.
commercial use, not a resident, not strictly residential use.
Right, so can we get the impact fee waived? Do we need site plan review? Is there an issue with the slopes? Is there an issue with the setbacks? And is there an issue with the slope? Those are the 5.
Said slopes twice.
Yeah.
Okay.
How long would the people who are in this facility be staying?
That's a good question, Ron. It varies. I would say we've had people stay up to, retired couples come and they volunteer. There's no payroll at Maranatha. It's very, very unusual. Even as we've grown, everyone is volunteer. So people will come for a month and work weekends.
As
so
volunteer staff
As volunteer staff, yeah.
for the summer season,
For the summer season or fall or spring, yeah.
but not year round.
Well, we might have someone for a month in the winter time. I mean, we do.
Is the new
things in
building
winter.
gonna be fully insulated
It will
and
be,
such?
yes.
I guess what I was getting to, when you mentioned father-son, father-daughter,
Right.
family retreats, et cetera, would
Right,
children be coming in
right.
and
Would
being
be
there for
family
3 months or so?
volunteering.
No. our summer programs, and we have less youth programs all the time in New Durham. You know, there's less kids, and they don't go to camp anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it's a whole change. And so that's one of the reasons we only have 10 days in the summertime of youth camp. But we've added family weeks, so the family can come for a whole week and have a vacation. I wanted that. I never was able to afford it, so it's still on an offering basis. These families can come and hang out and have a ball for a week.
But I think in answer to your concern on the impact fee, there should be no impact on the school system, because they shouldn't.
Right, that's
long
the
enough to-
central question there.
Right,
Is
Should be
this a
no impact on the
residential thing?
right.
Doesn't sound like it.
That's not the plan.
No.
You know, the camp counselors, you might have, you know, all the female counselors standing in there or something while there's a training session. As I said, it tends to be retired couples that come and volunteer.
The other things that we do as a ministry, and it back there in that trailer, as I think about times, we did have a guy stay there for a couple of months who was going through a divorce. So family crisis, we get involved with that some, and we do give them temporary housing. And it's always a hard thing because temporary can be,
Sure.
and they get comfortable.
Yeah.
But we've never allowed it to go on. Because I'm comfortable with it has been to have them leave. They got to at some point.
Yeah,
Even so, if they had children, they'd either be taking them to the New Durham school, or I guess commuting to wherever the child was going
Right.
to
In
school.
most cases, we're talking.
Or the high school.
It's just that it's been single, the guy has to leave home for a while.
Yeah.
Or in one case, the woman felt she had to, and things like that.
And you still have the option that New Durham children come free?
They all come free, and adults too now, so that a father and son can come to a father-son retreat. Yeah.
Because I'm just looking at the waiver
Right.
requirements, and it does say that planning board can agree to waive all or part of impact fee in lieu of payment of cash, a proposed contribution of real property or facility improvements, or the equivalent value and utility to the public. And I'm just wondering if that's, a service certainly that you provide for families in
Well, we
town.
do, yes, we do. Yep,
Now, I know many kids for many years have gone there.
they have, and they still do.
benefited.
Yeah, yeah. It's,
Question, with respect to fees, what fees are charged to individual user fees, sort of thing?
that we charge?
Yeah.
Okay, it's, first of all, it's approximately half what other similar ministries charge for like a week of camp in the summertime. But we do not, since the very beginning, it's run by a board, it's a nonprofit organization. One of the original board members said, salvation's free, we're not gonna ever turn anyone away for financial reasons. So it's a suggested fee, and parents can do what they want, or adults do as they want to do.
Mhm.
So I hope that answers your question.
So how does Maranatha come up with its revenue?
That's a miracle in itself.
Donation.
But all right, first of all, we have all volunteer help, there's no payroll. It is a tax exempt, so we do receive a number of gifts of food and other things. And then individuals, churches, and businesses make donations. Yeah.
Well, some make them in money, some make them in time, or
Or material,
Lumber.
like the van I drove in here tonight was a gift from a Ford dealer. You can go jump on the skid steer, and one of the board members, somebody in this church was selling a skid steer, and he said, don't sell it, give it, and we gave him a tax receipt, and so that's, it's quite, don't get me on it, it's very exciting to see all the stuff that happens.
the one I like is when I think it was your son was praying for English muffins, and somebody showed up with a whole bunch of English muffins from
600 packages.
Dale, that they had to take off the
Thomas.
stores and say, Thomas's muffins. But it's just trying to, it's the goodness of people's heart that donate things, that's what makes it go.
The reason I ask these questions is because of the impact fee.
Yeah.
And Impact fees, as far as I know, and I'm a short timer here, impact fees are related to, of course, school costs and so forth, but that's not the sole reason that an impact fee is assessed. So, for various and sundry other reasons.
Right.
Well, ours is for school.
Ours currently is for
Yeah,
school,
it's a
only,
Strictly
impact
school?
fee, yeah.
right now.
Yeah, right
Can
now.
be changed.
Can I get a refund on my impact fee?
No, it doesn't, it isn't dependent on whether you have children or not.
That's just its use.
Yeah,
Right.
That's the use, yeah. Yeah.
I see.
Because you could sell that house tomorrow,
Right.
you know?
Right, you can, that's the reason why it is the way it is. You may not have children, whoever your homeowner is. That Joe homeowner may not have children, but they could add a room to their house, right? That could be another, they're gonna call it a study or whatever. But then, year after they finish this addition, they sell the house to a family and that needs another bedroom. And now it's another bedroom. And it has a school impact in the
All
future.
right, so following
That's
that.
why any expansion of an existing or proposed house
Yeah.
has an impact fee. Because it could impact the school in the future, even if it didn't.
So not to belabor this, but an individual pays an impact fee for new construction with the thought that there may be children involved with the schools, but if there is not, that building could be resold, could be sold the next day.
Right,
Would that purchaser pay an impact fee as well?
no,
I see.
the person who does the expansion, renovation, repair is the one that pays it.
And I think the point we want to make is where this is a nonprofit, the intent is that this would continue for the Christian ministry and not be a unit that would be sending kids into the school system.
We've, helped me on this. I'm familiar with the lot, just because, taking on Mary Meeting Road all these years. Is this lot a non-conforming lot? It doesn't.
The lot is large enough, it's a large, how many acres is to the lot?
She looked it up, I think it's like 3.7
Oh,
acres.
okay.
No, it's.
For that lot that pertains to the structure you want to
Right.
build.
It's adjacent to the larger parcel, which has the dormitories and the camps and the kitchen and all that stuff on
Okay. Can you tell me the original square footage of, I guess the last square footage of living space and your proposed living space? 3-season porches, I understand, doesn't count.
Oh, I was told it did.
So I'm assuming you're talking 14 by 70,
it. Yeah.
right, is the original.
Yeah, here,
And we're moving to 2 more in length to 72, and 6 more in width, so you're
Right.
20 by 72.
well, but he's adding a second floor and the basement.
So is that right, the footprint 20 by 72?
Yes, correct.
20 by 72,
That's what this is right here, and the green is what, is.
but it's a second story same?
Second story center.
Okay. Okay. I'm just trying to get the numbers.
Yep, so here's what the new building would look like. And this is what we're adding, what's in green.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Can you show that to the other side too?
Right. Let's go around
Yeah.
the whole
So this is the street side here.
So the living space is going up.
Right. I'm trying to get out.
Where's the pond?
Additional
Here.
floor.
So the pond's right here. Yeah.
And this is the original,
No, just the white is the original. The white's the original, and we're adding this 6 feet to this 2 feet.
When you say the white's the original, oh man.
Yep.
Oh, I see, green, okay.
Yeah.
The green is
this
the
as
additional.
well.
Yes, that was a porch.
Okay.
It's a 3-season porch.
Is that the same numbers?
I don't know where he got his numbers. Those are ones on the assessing board.
And what distance do we have from here to the road?
About 39 feet. What is the setback now? from the road?
For a house,
Mm.
I believe it's 20 feet.
Yeah, that's, okay, that's what I heard. So we do have, if you say you don't like us moving this way, we could move towards the street. We really don't want to do that, but we're open
I have
to
980,
your idea.
my 70 is 980.
Yeah, that's what I would have thought.
No,
So I don't know where
because we were all talking.
But,
How, where is the
um,
slope
The-
currently?
All right, the slope
There's no question
starts
he's in line.
about
Moving
4
here.
feet.
Right.
The
Right, I'm
slope
just trying to
starts
figure it
about
out, not
4
trying to
feet
come up
from
with some numbers
there,
here.
so about right in here, the
Um,
slope starts down.
First 150 is exempt,
Pardon me?
You're
right?
gonna fill?
We fill, what we do is now, we'd be taking the fill out,
It might even
because we want to put a solid here.
The first
This would be
150
a
is
walk-up
exempt, right?
basement, which will be
Okay.
great help. We're gonna have bathrooms there for the kids that go to the pond, they can shower. Our present cabins are typical, our four
Sort of a
cabins.
changing room thing.
There's changing rooms
So,
down there, because,
I'm looking at 1750.
you know, years ago,
expanded space.
we didn't even have bathrooms in
That's
the
what I
cabin.
calculate.
You know, it's just the way it was, so now.
What's the
people like
size
that.
of the new footprint, 20 by 72?
Right. Original's 14 by 70.
Yeah.
That's 980.
Yeah.
New is 20 by 72
Yeah.
minus 2
Yeah.
is 2880.
Yeah.
Minus 980 minus 150 is 750.
Looks like to me.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's where I am. I'm just trying
I
to get
think you're right,
on the same page here.
that you're adding 1,750 additional living space,
Yeah.
square feet of living space.
Including the cellar,
No,
No.
you're saying a second floor.
a second floor.
The second floor.
So
Is
you're
that
you're
much?
expanding out, if you want to look at the same numbers,
Yeah.
right here. Original is 14 by 70,
Yeah,
980.
yeah.
Your new is 20 by 72 times 2 floors, right? Is that correct?
All right. Yep,
2880
yep,
minus 980
yep.
minus 150, which is the exemption, brings you to 1750 expanded. Okay? I'm just
So that's
getting the
under
number,
2,000.
figuring where
Yeah.
the number is.
All right.
Okay?
Yeah, so I think you're adding 1,750, not counting the basement, which I guess, again, without the basement.
Would you need this? Thank you, bud. As far as steep slopes, I don't know offhand. It doesn't,
Didn't look like it triggers.
didn't really look like it, but I don't know that offhand.
That'll be the building inspector can verify that.
Yeah, you can take a look
Because
at
it's a
that, at least make a
pre-existing-
judgment. If it's
Yeah.
really close, then you'll need an engineer or not.
Yeah. It didn't look,
So
Okay.
we'll talk to
Have the
John
building
about
inspector
that.
give you a site, take a site walk, look at your posts. He'll make a judgment call on whether
Yep.
he can say it's close. If it's close, then you need to get an engineer to do measurements.
Because I was thinking that he's gonna disturb less than 2,000 square feet, which I thought didn't trigger the steep slope.
Generally, yeah.
So but
Right.
yeah, we'll take him out there
Yeah.
to see it.
It looks like it is right now, but
Looks like it's
not
okay.
going out and looking at it and such, I'm not gonna make a decision on that.
So we'll talk to the building inspector and take his, whatever he says on the steep slope to do that.
Yep. So there's that.
John, I wish he was here. He had another question about whether he should charge us for the building permit or not. And we do something for the town every year. We used to give a gift to the fire station. So we would just, we're not asking for,
Well, let's deal with the impact fee, which is under the planning board. I suspect waiving the building permit is probably under the selectmen.
Probably.
beyond us anyway.
Yeah.
but we're not gonna request that. That's being small. I mean, it's 6 to 700
So
dollars.
in front of this board, we want to know if they'll waive the impact fee because of the use
Right.
as basically non-residential,
Right.
not year-round residential.
Right. So I guess that's where we are here. Everyone has a copy of the waivers in front of them.
Yeah, I still have one question, only because of all of the different discussions we've had the past few months about rebuilding. We've been so focused on it needs to be the same footprint.
If there are restrictions, waterfront restrictions or something like that.
The lot, maybe the lot restriction, right?
Right, the lot's too small or non-conforming lot, things like that, yes. I was,
So historically.
I was involved with something else, I heard a lot size, but I didn't catch it because I was involved with something else.
3.7, I believe.
3.7.
Got it right there on the assessment card,
Right,
on the
Yeah, I was
first
just
So-
curious.
side. Flip it over.
so as far as that goes, that's not a problem. 3.7 acres is not a small lot. The setbacks, 20 feet, you're at 35.
Or 39 in that area.
So-
The road bends. So we could move towards the road. We'd like to keep it, where it is, away from the road.
Right. Water setback, even though it's a man-made pond, it's now a water body.
So we'll need a variance on that?
I think because it's not a great pond, they'll probably have to.
It's
Adhere to the
somewhat
wetland.
small,
Yeah,
right?
Adhere
It's
to the
not-
wetland setbacks.
Which is 25 or 50? I
I
forget
I don't have
offhand.
my, I'm just pulling things.
Offhand, I forget what the general
But
wetland
it's-
setback is. It's,
30 feet. But we're around 30 to 35 feet. It was hard for me to measure it. from-
Yeah.
Wouldn't they have to go to the state and get a wetlands permit? Wouldn't that
We're
be
not
the
touching the
state
wetland.
he's not disturbing the
We're
wetlands.
not
And
going.
this is the
This is just
wetlands
a
buffer,
setback.
which is.
This is just a setback.
Setback, which is local.
I just don't, there's too many darn numbers in our regs, I can't remember them all.
While he's looking that up, can I ask Chris a question?
Sure.
It just said that, I guess John Abbott mentioned something about the septic tank and the
Right.
leach field, and we've met. So what did he ask and what have you done?
Okay, he asked for a verification of the size of the leach field to see if the existing leach field would accommodate the larger building, which is very reasonable.
Right.
And we got the original plan out, which is here, you guys do well with that ordinance.
Yeah.
And so I have a letter with me if you want to see it from, I have a copy of it here, stating that it is. We're
Because your
talking
original
about
trailer had how many bedrooms?
2,
2
But
bedrooms,
what
and the new
happened-
building is gonna have,
6.
That's what I figured.
But what happened was when we built that leach field, there was a distribution box on each end, and there was supposed to be another house built towards Mary Meeting Lake that never got built.
oh, so you did.
I got paid dirt on that one.
You overbuilt your
We-
septic for
we
the
did.
thing you actually have.
Yes,
Did
but who
a year
knows,
ago.
yeah, so,
Whatever.
so there's a confirmation that it is good for.
And that includes the tank and not just the leach field?
No, I have to up the tanks,
Okay,
but
So for 6
we talk about
bedrooms,
last things, whatever septic tanks we need are delivered.
That's 1,000.
Okay.
So
so you
we-
still
we-
need to speak with the state
No,
subsurface bureau, because you'll
read that
have to,
letter.
Okay.
Because it's a, no, but yeah,
Go up to
in some
2,000.
cases.
Pass it over.
gallon tank. Yeah,
He's a local tank without going to the state.
Yeah, I can add a tank.
Well, that's all I
Oh, you
guess.
can
I
add
knew
it.
the original
Yeah.
ponds on it.
that's not my purview.
This is,
I
well,
Is
it's
it- is that what-
I would
The son-
prefer
the son-
a letter from the
grandson
state
is also
saying
John,
what
so
you
this
did is correct.
Well,
Yeah.
Okay.
see that letter that we went to the effort to get?
Okay,
Who wrote that letter?
And it does say another
Septic
tank.
design.
Oh, septic design company?
I would be happier if you just submitted that and your plan to the state and they gave you a letter back saying yes. I would be happier if you did that. I don't think that's gonna cost you much.
Well,
Everything costs.
You won't have to get re-engineered, I don't believe, you just have to say, the original plan was this, the leach field is this big, you just have to tell them what you have in the ground,
But
you're gonna,
yeah, why don't we have him?
let me look at the letter in a minute, but it doesn't
Yeah,
sound that
we
difficult to
We
me.
can have him and the state talk, that would be the best.
Yeah,
'Cause they
yeah,
talk
get
the
your
same language.
engineer or whoever wrote this letter, to talk to the state and get, I would be
Bottom line
happier,
is really-
I would be a lot happier if the state said yes.
Yep.
You know? Okay? Field is 20 by
Now, is
46,
the pond,
6
I
bedrooms.
know it's called
600
Miracle
cars.
but is there,
Is
is there like an aquifer under there that comes from the Mary Meeting Marsh
a
area?
spring, there is a spring, yeah. Yeah. And actually, we've done a pretty good job of diverting groundwater from going in.
Good.
Yeah, so we've got it.
Is it far enough away from the marsh and the river?
I don't offhand know the setbacks there.
I was just wondering, the aquifers of the water that's already there, if that was any issue. He says it's okay. I guess they've taken that into consideration.
What do you think, Bob? Take that as is, or ask the state to verify it?
I think leaving it with the building inspector.
Have him check that. If he's agreeable to it, then say yes. If he's questionable, then get the state to verify it. That would work for me.
Yeah.
That would work for me. He knows more about these things than I do.
So that's the second one we'll take up with the building
Yeah.
inspector. We'll
If
take
the
that
building
up with-
inspector agrees with this,
And you know the building inspector, correct?
if he agrees with it, then, and he can, give us a note saying so,
So
and
we'll,
verify that you add another 1,000-gallon tank or remove the existing and put a single 2,000 in, however you wanna do it.
Correct. Yep.
And make that work.
okay, so we'll ask that, we'll ask the slope, then to the building inspector, those
Yeah.
two.
Verify the setbacks are
The
correct.
setback, it's considered a setback from a wetland, not like a lake or anything, right?
Right, this is not a great pond by our standards, but it is a wetland.
Did you find it?
I was actually looking at something else.
I know it's in a regs, what the setbacks are for a wetland.
Okay.
I think they are close, but it might be different between a great pond or versus a wetland. That's really
Also, Scott, would you like just John to verify that he has seen the engineering assessment report sign off, that the roof trusses are okay for 90-pound snow load?
That's
That
standard
was the
building
second.
inspector stuff.
Right.
That's,
Okay.
Yeah.
So he
I'm
would
not
just
touching that.
automatically.
I'm not gonna
okay,
touch
all right.
that.
No.
That's
Okay.
building inspector's issue.
And he okays the final architectural drawings?
Right.
And all that?
I'm
Okay.
not touching that. No,
Then,
I don't want it.
all right.
I'm not touching that.
So-
Yeah,
That's not our purview.
with respect to setbacks, I'm looking at paragraph E on page 31, flood hazard area and water body setbacks. For no new buildings except for water-related structures shall be located in a flood hazard area or less than 75 feet from any water body or river. Is the pool or the pool considered a water body?
75 feet?
But you're
It's
talking
kind of
about,
like a swimming
I think
pool,
that was
not a lake.
no, but we need to back up. That's referring to a flood zone.
It said flood hazard area
Yeah.
and water body setbacks.
Yeah, so,
And water body setbacks.
so we may need, I guess one of the questions is, I mean, you're the ones who can send us to the ZBA if we need to go to clarify that
I think
question.
you need to do that.
If we have to go to clarify, we can also seek variance in case we did have to do it.
So the two things to ask John, slope and.
The septic. Could ask John, I have those two.
That's not a flood zone?
Well, it is down by Marsh Pond, but the
What page are you
elevation
on?
is
Rick?
Yes.
31,
I know.
probably 12 or 15 feet difference.
paragraph E.
When we rebuilt down there, we did have to get a federal flood.
The pond level is maybe in the floodplain, you're saying.
Well, the other pond is, I don't
The
know
other
the
pond.
elevation, yeah, and this one's running into that, so I don't know that.
Okay.
Sort of an odd flood zone area around here.
There is?
Well, I live up on March Drive, just right up the road here. And when we first moved in, we didn't need flood insurance.
What'd you say the lot size was?
Pardon me?
The lot
They
size?
made it
3 acres, 3.7.
3.7. Minimum lot size is 2, correct?
60,000 square feet, so getting upwards of 2 acres. Yeah.
Right.
And,
Okay.
and the perks. That's
Sort of
It is.
different sizing,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, it is soil-based lot sizing.
Yeah,
So,
and obviously, if it's cleared for a 6-bedroom,
It's gravel, it's the nicest place.
Yeah.
There's no other gravel on the property, but that area is
Yeah.
very, very, is a strip of nice. Yeah.
road frontage.
But that system gets a lot of rest,
Yeah.
and that's very, very good for a leach field to have rest.
It's good for me.
I think I might have found a reference, it's on page 78, buffer setback distances. And for lakes and ponds, less than 10 acres, buffer strip is 25, buildings are 75, septic is 100, and impermeable surface is 50.
So that's saying the building is 75 if this qualifies as a pond, which it probably does. So we're gonna have to go to the ZBA, yeah.
Table A,
He said
page
25
78.
feet from it.
No, 75 for the
From the
building,
pond,
Huh?
75 from the pond.
for the building.
Yeah, water.
The question is, what is a pond? The state said 10 acres or more. What does the town of New Durham say?
This one says less than 10
Less than
acres.
10 acres.
No,
No,
that's
that's-
saying
no,
less than 10. isn't it?
Yeah, what
Where were you,
I
Paul?
read you
What
is
page?
page 78.
Yeah, this actually won't apply to this, because this was, this is part of the water quality protection overlay district, and that only applies to new subdivisions, the way it was enacted,
Very
so.
good.
Well, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Yep,
That's what
True.
we're all working together. This is
True.
great.
that is true. Yeah, there's specific areas for that.
Yeah, I thought there were setbacks in the wetland overlay, but there aren't, aside from septic, leach field setbacks, but,
They've already got their leach field in
Yeah.
place, so.
So in other words, it sounds like we don't have a setback problem from the water to the building.
Oh,
it does not appear you do, no.
Okay.
So let's not make one.
Well, Bill. Okay, so that's the third answer. Now, the impact fee,
I guess that's,
Will you guys feel more comfortable talking about it after we leave?
no, I can't do that. That doesn't work that way.
hey, Mr.
They might like to sometimes.
Dale.
We can't do it that way.
Hey, good to see
Haven't
you.
seen you since Alan Boatwell was teaching us tractor. Remember
A
Alan?
long time, yeah.
Over Cogswell?
Yeah, I used to like going down there. Third Street.
Yeah, International.
Yeah, that was a long time ago.
But I don't know, I haven't been a select board long enough.
You still
No,
want
No.
we haven't had to deal with questions setbacks, so I don't know if it's the selectmen or
My son and my nephew both still have some.
you know.
Yeah.
If it's in the ordinance, I mean, it comes to the planning board.
Yeah,
For the impact
for the
ordinance.
impact.
To the-
Oh, the impact
Yeah, the
fee?
impact.
Oh, it comes to us, we're the ones
does.
that deal with
Yeah.
that. You expend the money,
Yeah, I
that's
know.
right, but we do the regulatory end of things.
Well, Dorothy, you read that there can be a reduction or elimination of the impact fee based upon,
well, I'm just reading that
Contribution.
now. This is, you certainly don't meet the criteria for A because we can waive it if the residents, you know, it's a age restricted.
Right,
facility.
it's strictly retirement.
Right.
You
That's not-
take,
that's not-
you have
that's not the
families
case.
and children. B, I'm just reading what I read originally, that if
Yeah.
the proposed contribution of real property or facility improvements of equivalent value and utility to the public.
Yeah, we're not doing that.
And I'm just finishing reading because what we would need to do then is submit the request of waiver for the impact fees under this particular provision that involves a contribution of real property or the construction of the capital facilities. The planning board would need to submit a copy of the waiver request to the Board of Selectmen for its review and consent prior to the acceptance of the
Right, but
proposed
we're not
contribution.
proposing a contribution of the capital. If you're gonna make, if you're gonna produce a culvert or some kind of, if you're gonna repave the road in your area,
Oh, I
pay
see.
for that, or something of that order.
Yeah.
if you were gonna pay for a capital outlay the town would have to pay for, then you could, you know,
Well, what I was thinking,
that doesn't count, so. That's where. Capital facility impacts. C doesn't apply as far as I can tell. Due to conditions. D is the only possible. The planning board may waive an impact fee assessment where it finds that due to conditions specific to a development agreement or other written conditions or lawful restrictions applicable to the subject property, the development will not increase the demand on the capacity of the public capital facility or system for which the impact fee is being assessed. So if you submit a written statement saying no children will ever attend New Durham schools and be residents of the town, that is the waiver that I see D applies to. That's how I interpret that, if anyone else disagrees.
So whether it's a nonprofit organization or not,
That is not a qualification.
I mean, this is
I don't
unique,
see that
it's
as a
commercial, but you can't do it as a residential, because it would, you put it
Right,
in
no.
deed, but we can't enforce that.
Right.
It becomes a liability to the neighbors, so.
Right.
I think,
D seems,
what's the seasonality of the use again?
it's 4 seasons, but it's not, it's the people.
Short term.
It's short term.
right, it's not a residential thing.
But I see his point, it's a very good point.
Yeah.
Either, it's the neighbors have to police it,
Right,
that's not.
right. Well, that's why it says in here a written agreement by you stating it.
Then I think you need to decide whether you'd rather have the possibility
The
in the
freedom.
future that you might have a homeless family that you were putting up there for a month in which you had to take care of the kids, outweighs never having the kids.
Right.
And you may want to pay the impact fee just to have that future flexibility.
Yep,
That's your call,
yep.
or maybe your board's call.
I guess that's what I was getting to earlier, is I think with the services you provide and the facilities you have, there's that possibility you're gonna have a
These short-term
long-term
residents.
family.
Short term.
Short term, but long enough that the child would need to go to
Attend school
one of
for-
the schools.
The question from the public, David?
Well, I just want to mention that when we worked on impact fees in town, the rule of thumb was, if a child can end up living there, then it should be
Right,
impact fee imposed upon it.
right.
Whether they're going to or not, it was irrelevant, not relevant, I should, right word.
So do you want to withdraw your request to waive the impact?
That's true, yeah.
You want to withdraw
We'll
that
we'll
request?
withdraw, because I don't want, we'd like to be a positive, everything positive, and we don't want neighbors having to
Yeah.
police it. No, we don't, that's not a good thing.
no, I'd rather see you withdraw it because you feel that it leaves doors open for you.
Yes, well, that's what I'm saying.
It gives you,
Yeah.
it gives you
Some
possibilities.
options, and I think.
Right,
that's-
and even if it's only a month or two, you know, but if it happens, you know,
Could be a
a
missionary.
couple times a
family.
year,
Yeah,
then that's a significant
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
effect.
I mean, we've had, missionary families in the past, that we've stayed that had kids. You know,
Right.
you wouldn't want to not prevent them from staying there for a month or two while they were doing
Right,
a
right.
deputation or something.
And I don't wanna presume anything, but it strikes me that this would be the kind of facility that different things could mature into it for you.
Yes, that would give us flexibility.
Okay. Okay, so you withdrawn that request. So then the only thing that's remaining is the waiving of the site review.
Right. The site plan review is generally a change in use.
This really isn't a change.
This
in
isn't
use.
really a change
Or a substantive
or something.
increase, expansion, I don't necessarily see that.
I'm not sure, it borderline as far as that goes, as far as I see it.
Well, the other facility, the mobile that was taken down.
Had 2 bedrooms.
Yeah, 2
This
bedrooms.
has
Now you're up to
6.
6.
But it's not
The
expanding
use-
the
the
type
same-
of use.
Right.
It's the same use.
Right, it's the same kind of use, it's just expanding its capacity a bit, significantly.
It was
With the-
residential for a while, wasn't it? Wasn't
Yeah, your mother-in-law.
Yes,
made it.
yes, it was.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Personally, and the board can agree or disagree, but personally, I would be happy with getting a letter from Marantha saying that there will be no residents, short, no long-term residents, short-term emergency use only.
Not just emergency, but training and other.
Short-term, as far as school children go, short-term emergency
Yeah.
use only, pretty much emergency use only. That will cover the impact fee, that will cover expanded any residents living there and changing the use in that manner also. If I saw a letter like that, I think I would approve it as is. With approve
A building permit.
a building permit, I would submit that, I would submit a letter to the building inspector saying I would approve this as is, without a site plan.
And he has withdrawn the request for the waiver for the impact fee even,
Right.
so, okay.
Right, but I would still add that clause in there to
Okay.
make it stick.
I'd add one thing sort of in your favor to do your letter, that just as we were just talking about, there could be an evolution, or the missionaries could be coming in, that you would include, this is just my suggestion, a line that would indicate that should you have an evolution of change, that you'd come back to the board to talk to us about that.
Right.
And at that point, pay the fee.
No, it would
Well, no,
be
you'd
for
pay the
review
fee.
and
You're gonna pay the fee because you want your short-term
Right.
possibility of school children.
Okay, all right.
But I don't know how long, if you had missionaries in there.
Yeah, if you have missionary there for a year or so, then that's residential.
So
3 months seasonal, I would not call residential. But 6 months or more, I would call residential.
Most of it's,
Myself.
most of it's weekend or a week in the summer.
Right, I think staying under 6 months is not gonna be a problem. I can't see it.
That's just my number, I just made it up.
But I can,
Just saying,
I
the
can
board
see
can-
Rod's point,
comment.
that if it evolves, then we should come in and consider site review.
Yeah,
And to consider any of the impacts it might have on the neighbors or whatever.
the board can agree or disagree with what I just said, it's open.
I guess there was a question I wanted to ask, I know you're a tax exempt property now, are there any long-range plans for Maranatha? Is this something that's gonna be continued? by
That's why there's a
family?
board, yes.
Yeah.
The long range plans is, and a lot of that's in place now with different people doing different jobs.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you see this as a permanent
Oh,
institution in New Durham?
definitely is.
Yeah.
Oh, yes,
Okay.
yeah.
I'd be comfortable with that, Scott.
Sorry.
There you go.
Okay, so
Consensus.
we'll write a letter, send it to you, we'll talk to the building inspector on those two issues that are there, and other than that, I suppose the building inspector won't want to issue the building permit until you receive, review, and approve the letter
Right,
sent.
right, we'll receive your letter, we'll discuss it, if there are any editorial changes needed, we'll bring those back. Otherwise, we'll pass a motion approving the letter and submit it to the building inspector.
I want to be sure that we put in this letter what you all want, so my secretary's taking notes. How would you like-
Temporary residential use, less than 6 months, emergency, staff,
Children,
Volunteers.
volunteers, and that, you indicated that the setback from the pond, from Miracle Pond was not an issue.
right, you confirm that, setback issues, okay?
Here's the,
And it's up to the building inspector on the slopes
Yep.
and the
Septic
septic,
issues. Yep,
along with, of course, all the building issues. So the building inspector for the slope and septic, the setback is not an issue, temporary residential 6 month, we withdrew, well, we can put it right in here, withdrew request,
to waive impact.
waive impact, and understand that pending approval of this, we won't need a site review.
Yep,
Pretty well cover it?
I think we did. Okay, I'm gonna say your first 150 feet of expanded space is exempt. If you wanna break down the numbers I came up with off my envelope here.
Yep.
Your existing was 14 by 70, is 980 feet. New space is 20 by 72 times 2 floors, which is 2880. Okay, so that 2880 minus 980 minus 150 is 1750 of your expanded space.
So that's the
That's
space
the
here.
impact fee
Impact eligible.
eligible area, 1750.
Okay, I didn't put that in there.
Okay.
Anything else that we want to include?
So we're paying an impact fee on what was existing?
No.
What
No,
no,
wasn't
Exactly.
existing.
It was not existing.
What
It
is
was
the
not
impact-
existing
how much
minus
square
an
foot?
additional 150 feet.
And how much is the impact fee per square foot?
$2.34.
$2.34.
So you're talking $1,700–3,500.
Yeah, something under four.
In that
John, that was
ballpark.
the number, I think John gave a number, something under four.
Yeah,
Anything else that we should be aware of, that you can think of?
I'm clear.
Thank you very much for your time.
We have so much time, and thank you guys for volunteering and doing this. This
Yeah.
is,
Thank
I
you
know it's a,
for, you're doing a good thing, so.
well, we're trying to be a positive.
I'm amenable to, working with you as much as possible,
Yep,
you know?
we appreciate that. We appreciate you helping us because I think they've got a valid ministry, but you've got a valid vocation that you're involved with here, and we appreciate community and the camp working together.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Always have. All right,
That's great.
thank you.
Good to see you.
You must be somebody retired working for Barrington, so.
Oh, I did, that's what happened.
Thank you. You're meeting the-
I was here in Rochester, I went down there.
Did you do a picture on?
We only worked like 3 or 4 days.
No,
Yeah.
no.
Never?
We'll probably never, the way this is I don't know if you're familiar with a permaculture-based farm. So plants are integrated amongst each other. It's not in a row fashion that is pickable, that is public pickable, so it'll never be that way.
You might not
Oh, my
call
God,
Thursday
it's all
if we
over the
do
place,
some
but, my nephew's the one who's still running the kid.
family emergency.
All right,
Jason Sport. Sports.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay.
What's happened is,
No, what happened was,
the contract.
he folded these up and did them over the road, the big ones.
Transport decision.
Right, so he parked it down there.
Yeah, big ones now.
Someone
so-
came along and borrowed the pin out of the hydraulic piston.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so what happened is he started to lower it, not knowing that the piston was not secure.
Yeah.
Went, and it came right down the bottom.
Just-
You doing minutes next?
Yeah, we'll do minutes of November 16th.
Nice guy.
Yeah, it was, sorry. Let's go meet the customer.
Yes, I do.
Pick up the pieces.
You gotta do a line of business. I bet you don't say that every day, though.
Well,
Monday night,
Especially in Rochester.
well,
Yeah.
she said,
Every town has its challenge.
Yeah, you do, you're right.
It's easy.
Laura, for the minutes, just be sure that the name of the camp is Maranatha. There's an A before the THA at the end.
Maranatha.
Yeah, Maranatha, because we kept calling it Maranatha. Maranatha.
I think I
There's an
looked
A
at
there.
Is this spelled right?
Maranatha.
Is that-
ATHA. So there's 4 A's?
M-A-R-A.
M-A-R-A.
Yeah, it is.
N-A, yeah.
Okay,
Thank you.
Four A's.
I'll make sure that gets in there, right?
All right. We'll sign that one too. Okay.
The entry in obsolescence seems a lot shorter than this discussion.
Yeah. Okay, if you're,
I don't wanna bring it up
no,
yet.
if everybody's finished page one, I would, like to make a, recommend a change under zoning ordinance review and changes.
Yeah.
Ms. Vizel, stated regarding the term of obsolescence, the definition, I would strike only is referenced in a state regulation. I would strike only, I would say it was not only in the,
Yeah.
but we didn't need to include it because it's referenced in the state.
Okay.
Ross, did you find the actual location where it is in the RSA?
I'm sorry, say that.
Did you actually did find the location in the RSA? Because I tried to look for it and couldn't find it.
Yep, it is, and I can get it to you. Let me see if I have it. My work is so heavy, I don't bring my whole book in with me anymore, but I might still have my notes. In fact, what we have comes right out of the state reg. The statement that we have, yeah.
Including God and all that?
Yeah, is in the state reg.
On the state statute.
Well, because in the towns, it usually says elements or something like that. It doesn't say God.
It actually did. It was
Huh?
right, it was right in the statute.
Yeah, I remember
Well,
you
so
pointing
it
that out.
must be here somewhere.
And Stratum was the only one that really gave a concise definition. I looked at all of the areas around the lake, figuring that maybe obsolescence would be an issue, because people would be wanting to,
Yeah.
it wasn't in Wolfeboro, it wasn't in Alton, Laconia, Guilford. It's probably in this packet.
I didn't want to put the whole RSA into the computer and then go through searching for the word, right? I tried a couple of places where I thought I could do that, but that knows.
Okay.
Well, I have our definition that we recommended, but,
Are we done with the, before we get into that, are we done with the minutes here?
oh,
Reviewing the minutes? You can get to that in a minute, let's go and do one thing at a time here.
one other, and that's really kind of a minor thing.
Huh?
Second paragraph from the bottom on page 2, Mr. Craycraft stated he worked on some changes in edits to removing woodlot status to convert parcels to merge or building lots.
Yeah, that's a
I
little
wonder if
awkward.
it made more sense removing woodlot status to convert parcels
Or,
to building lots or for merger.
yeah,
And I have another question. Oh, no, it's in your, no, never mind, it wasn't in the minutes, it's in your, edits on the,
okay. Okay,
that was all I had.
yeah, looks good to me. Any other comments? Paul,
If I may, it's.
regarding minutes?
Because I missed that meeting, I spent a lot of time listening to your discussions. And unfortunately, that you're soft-spoken. And no matter how many times I heard, I could not figure out what were the 3 definitions. And it doesn't tell me here that there are 3 definitions. So my recommendation would be that you incorporate what you're talking about, because I don't know what
I
you're
thought you did.
Are you talking
about the first line on second page. to bring three
Three
definitions.
definitions.
The definitions
thought it was-
of obsolescence, repair, and remodel.
Yeah,
Well, the bottom of the first page,
Yeah, but we
definition
don't
of
know
repair,
what you-
restore, and model.
Well, we don't, the three definitions don't tell me what you defined that you sent to the,
Well,
so, in total dark as to what you did.
I'm not sure we need the entire language in the minutes necessarily. It'll come in the meeting.
Well, it'll come at the public hearing, that's true. But here, it is totally mysterious as to
Otherwise, you made a
what you
motion.
found.
You made a motion,
You made a motion to bring three definitions.
didn't I?
Well, yeah, the motion says from the zoning ordinance for obsolescence, repair, and remodel.
So what did you define?
Those
what
three
items?
words. The definitions are not included in the motion, true. But those are the three words that will be
It
brought.
certainly would help, it's certainly, it's not audible enough, and I think it would be helpful that your minutes would reflect that, but it's up to you.
But if it's not an action, and you didn't actually incorporate it yet, you didn't even need it as a motion.
We didn't define the definitions because they're gonna come to public hearing. They
Okay.
haven't been officially completely defined
Yeah,
yet.
you really shouldn't.
We shouldn't put those in there yet. They're not completely defined yet. The
Well,
public hearing will define them.
Yeah, it's up to you.
But
That's the
I see his
point.
point too, identify what you're,
Those three words will be defined. Obsolescence, repair, remodel. Those will be defined in a future public hearing.
But you've already accepted them. So they're already defined.
By discussion, we've accepted them, but we have not had a public hearing to officially include them.
Need to take.
Oh, that's true, you've got to have a public hearing, but
We agreed that those definitions are ready for public hearing.
it's up to you how you want to do it.
How does the board feel? Should we include the absolute language of the public hearing in the minutes that we approve of?
Well,
That, we could do that, but that's gonna add a lot to the minutes, because some of the language we're including is extensive.
well, and you get into the three types of obsolescence,
Right.
How far down do you wanna
I know,
define
that's-
all these words?
That's my point. The public hearing will define exactly the language we're including in zoning ordinance.
Well, see, the next one, Mr. Allard, you do tell the public in your minutes. It's a quote, rank matter standards for obsolescence. And I said, I wonder what are those three definitions? And I listened and I listened and I backed it up and listened again.
I mean, it was
So I
in a
actually
written
need to find out
document.
what they are.
It was a written document that
I
Doc
know.
provided to
And
us.
that was very difficult for the public to hear.
Should I read them to them?
Why don't you do that as a suggestion? You do whatever you want. You could include it as an appendix to the minutes if you like. So that people are.
If we have to include the exact language of what we're going to submit to the public hearing in the minutes, for every change, the minutes are gonna get very long.
And you have
I hesitate to do that.
You have a remote minute taker, so you're gonna be editing these minutes
Right.
at every meeting.
Right. I think you need to come to the public hearing and find out what the actual language
Also,
is.
it's a little bit off of what you're suggesting, but just, we were given an explanation by the cable company a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
The
the acoustics.
The acoustics thinking here.
speaker, what's recording up there is,
Yeah, it's very difficult.
it misses a lot.
They can't improve that. And I'm gonna try and make a real effort to speak up, because I know I have and after we approve the minutes, Paul, I will either read the definitions to you, or after
Sure.
the meeting, I will give you the definitions,
Right.
okay?
No problem.
I mean, there's no big secret here.
No, it
Got
just.
copies of them right here.
Well, you did.
now his complaint is valid. The motion does not identify what you're making a motion on, except to say three definitions.
We are defining what what words will be defined. The motion states that, obsolescence, repair, and remodel. It just doesn't explain what those definitions are.
Oh, that's in the motion?
That is directly in the motion.
That's
Made a
not-
motion to bring 3 definitions from the zoning ordinance for obsolescence, repair, and remodel to public hearing. That's clear.
Yep,
Those words will be defined in the public hearing.
yep.
Okay?
Yep.
I think that is sufficient for the minutes. Any other comments? Hearing none, in favor of motion?
Make a motion that we approve the minutes of November 16th, 2017 as amended.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That's 5-0. Okay. Minutes, mail and correspondence?
Ross?
Zilch. Okay. New old other business. Ordinance relative to street excavation. You sent that to me this
And I
afternoon. I didn't have a chance to print it or read it.
I just made you guys a copy.
Okay.
Sent it to you guys over about a month ago.
I received it yesterday or something. It was today or yesterday.
I've got a copy.
Okay. So, now we can actually go through this. I really failed to see the point, but,
I haven't, the selectmen haven't brought it up.
they
So
have not or have?
They have not, there's not so many other things going on.
Okay.
Hasn't
So
been-
we're gonna spend, hopefully not more than 10 minutes going through this. Do you have an extra copy for the public at all? If they want it?
In the first section, 18.1, there was one suggestion, when we originally looked at it, I think, that the word town be added after in the third sentence, anyone needing to open or excavate any town street.
Right.
Or actually, any town street, yep. Yep. As private roads, for example. Again, 18.4, encumber a town roadway. We're gonna be consistent.
Well, would you do the same in 18.6, complete closing of the town street?
Yep. Even 5, any street, town street. We're gonna go there over street.
Nope.
Right?
Yeah.
Do we need to be that picky about it? I don't know.
Well, I was just thinking the same thing, it is the town of Durham, Hampshire,
But there are private roads that
Right.
this is exempt from, so.
and state roads are not the
And they're
same.
state
Or do
roads.
we put something in the beginning saying this is not applicable to any private roads? That would cover it and make it simpler.
Right?
Oh, true.
Do we want to say all private roads are exempt?
Well, remember, we had this discussion, because if you, when we first saw this, you didn't have that first graph under an ordinance relative to street. This says, no work shall be done on town roadways, shoulders, ditches, or other road drainage.
Right.
So maybe we've already,
You've already specified.
Have we ever said town
Town.
roadways? Do we, is that by saying on town roadways, is that implicit enough to say that private roadways are exempt from this ordinance?
It says class 6 roadway.
Should be, it should be good enough, or we wanna put a thing, another sentence. This ordinance only applies to town roadways owned by the town of New Durham. Private roadways are not included, or something to that effect.
Or
It
just
says
say private
including
roadways
class
on
6 roadways too,
Yeah,
in the top thing.
yeah,
About class 6, where's your?
the class sixes are private,
You both looked at.
Class 6 of town.
Village district roads,
yeah. How,
a separate governmental body, which this would not apply to. I'm just, the way it reads is, doesn't read properly.
is Copple Crown part of the town of New Durham? So
It is, but the roads are not part of the town.
then we probably need to say so specifically, then, don't we?
Yeah,
The
the roads,
village district owns their own roads.
Right, that's, so we need to come up with a new sentence then. This ordinance, right?
but, you know, the ordinance reads correctly, it's just you want to take that extra step, you know, say.
I want to be explicit, if we're gonna,
Yeah.
this ordinance only applies, right? To roads owned by the town of New Durham, not Copple Crown, not private class 6 roads, right?
But
Oh,
this
you
says
define
including
road
class
class.
6 roads. This one says it includes class 6 roads.
Okay. Now,
Which is a town road.
right, well, that's my question now, I'm trying to refine the definitions here. Class road is a town road. It's
Would you
just
put no private roads?
no private roads.
Privately owned roads.
Right, this ordinance only applies to,
Well, if you say what you said, applies to roads owned by the town
to
of New Durham, you've just excluded private roads.
owned. Right. I'm gonna say, I just wanna be, if I'm gonna go to the trouble, I'm gonna be crystal clear about it. It excludes, excludes all roads in Copple Crown, right?
They're privately owned roads.
Yeah,
In the village.
I think the way it was worded covered you.
yeah,
I do, because it says town owned, well, you could put town owned, instead of just saying town roadway, say town owned.
town owned, did we just? do that?
Roadways, shoulders, ditches, and other road drainage systems, including on class 6 roadways.
That's a good job.
That's
Does that
town
do
owned.
it, just adding owned?
Actually owned right there.
Alright,
Seems to do it.
fine, I like simple, I just wanna make sure it's all covered.
So we don't have to put town in all these other.
Alright,
applications.
alright, so,
So we
first
can cross
sentence in the
all this.
beginning, preamble sort of thing, no work shall be done on town-owned roadways.
Yeah.
All the explicit town things don't have to be there. Alright. I got in an argument with a lawyer once about I wanted to be, every single paragraph wanted to be explicit, nailing it down. He said, you already said it in the first paragraph, you don't need to repeat yourself. So, that's fine.
Otherwise, it seems pretty in-depth.
I still don't know why we're even talking about this myself, actually.
They just wanted you
I
guys
know.
to read through it and make any recommendations for changes.
Yep.
Something they might have missed or something
No,
you
we
didn't quite
threw it
agree
in
with.
town-owned roads, so.
I have a question on 18.4. The last sentence, two-way traffic must be provided after construction hours, even if only one lane is available.
That means the stoplight.
It means a stoplight.
Okay, because my question is, how is this
Right.
managed? How do you manage it?
How do you fit 2 lanes in one?
Remember, I brought that up.
That's-
I went over it. I
Yeah,
didn't do that.
that means a stoplight.
I'd rather say.
So it's a stoplight?
Yes.
Yes, it's a stoplight.
Yeah, yeah.
Should that be,
I know, that's, they can have someone stand there and flag 24 hours a day if they want to,
Yeah.
but a stoplight would be a lot cheaper. I'm not gonna tell them how to do it.
Well, some of the construction that I've seen around the area, what they've done is take the side, they've divided the one lane into two with.
Yeah, using some kind of gutter or whatever,
Travel, breakdown.
breakdown lane, if there is such a thing, yeah.
Or at least it was.
Yeah.
Alright, so I can take that back to them.
Yeah, I had read the same part, it was just, part of the beginning was missing.
Yeah, the only thing that was missing was
No
the,
permanent tree restoration will be allowed between November and April.
Whatever, I don't, see, most of the stuff I don't have any knowledge of, 18.11, whatever, you say so. How it's gonna be backfilled and compacted, I don't have any knowledge
You
of
know,
that.
I don't know patching guidelines either, I'm
You
assuming
know,
that
so,
DPW has read this.
branches within pavement. Please,
You see 1812, I think that's the definition of the class 5 road. It gets used interchangeably with,
which number was that, Dave?
12, 1812. I think that's the definition that the town adopted for their, what they would call a class 5 road in a subdivision. Something when they subdivision the road in, they're required to, when they build the road, to certain specifications.
Oh, yeah.
And we often call that class 5. Because that will become a town road.
okay,
And you see it used interchangeably with class 5 going in a town, on a dirt road. So I know you've had this issue come up on your class 6 roads, converted to class 5, converted a class 6 road to class 5. This is the specification you have to go to. That's my understanding anyway.
okay.
Basic question. I'm just looking at 18.4, a street excavation permit gives the permittee the right to encumber a roadway and so forth. Who would be a permittee in this case? The town?
No.
Can I get a road, can I submit a permit to have my road regraded and rebuilt in front of my house?
If you wanna pay for it, sure.
You want-
No.
That's not what I had in mind, but,
Yeah,
but I mean, the
but I
definition
think one example I just came up with is if you own property on both sides of a road and you wanna put electrical power from one property to the other, you need to dig a trench under the road
yeah,
as a personal, as a homeowner. That's you're a permittee.
Okay.
That's one example, I just thought.
I have a right of way along the road that allows me for water maintenance, for water system, and sometimes it crosses the road, so you end up digging it up.
Right.
I know I put a sleeve in one time
Right.
to accommodate, so that we wouldn't have to go back and dig again. Right, you know, like a piece of conduit.
Yeah, well, this road Main Street was redone, what, 2 or 3 years ago?
That's a state road.
That is a state road.
Okay, so was the state in that case a permittee?
Yeah, that'd be different.
That,
It's not
the
a
state
town-
doesn't
it's not
own
a
the
town
road.
This is
The
on
town doesn't
town
own
roads.
this road. From Route 11, Main Street, Depot, Mary Meeting Road to the Hatchery is a state-owned road. The
Okay.
town does not own it. The town cannot do anything to it without state permission, as I understand it.
Right.
Well, okay, my question though is, who is a permittee?
Somebody who
Go
doesn't own,
beyond the fish hatchery, then go up,
Yep. someone beyond the town,
Yeah.
or the owner of the road.
Letter or the-
Someone who is not the town, someone who's not the owner of the road.
You're trying to see who. Yeah.
It's basically saying.
Most roads in town are owned by the town. The state owns this certain stretch
yeah,
here,
understood, but
and there are private roads.
I'm
that
just
are
looking at
included. A permittee is someone who does not own the road that wants to touch the road,
all right.
that wants to dig it up.
So, I mean, a permittee then, I would not as a permittee, volunteer, if you would, to repave 1 mile section of a road.
You
I
might, but
I might, I might want
No, but the best example is what Scott said, or what Dave,
Right.
if you had to run a
right,
power line.
You as a
or
private homeowner,
some of a drain.
private landowner,
You need a permit.
needed to
Okay,
disturb the road surface for some
So
reason.
It
Right.
allows you to do that.
Yep.
with-
But I was looking at this in the sense of someone, a permittee, someone wanting to refinish, repave a road section. So who is the?
Not
permit-
likely. Anyone can do that.
Okay, but I
Anyone
get,
could do that if they
all
wanted
right,
to,
okay.
but
But I,
That's
the
not
way
right.
this thing, look
it's
at-
exciting. That's not
the way
the
this
reason.
thing, yeah, the way this thing reads is a permittee the right to encumber a roadway with proper traffic control as long as the minimum 1 lane, blah, blah. It's talking about a section of the road.
Right.
So the permittee, in the case of a section of the road, would be someone other than the town, someone other than the
Someone-
state.
Right. It's simplifying somebody other than the owner of that
Okay.
road.
So it'd be
That's
the
what they
construction
have to
company
bond.
you hire,
Right.
Okay.
because they'll be working under your permit.
Right.
They do
Maybe,
the
maybe your land is a really steep slope coming down to the road. And maybe, part of your land is a very steep slope coming down to the road, and you get a lot of washout coming down, and then it flows, hits the road, and it washes down the road, and it floods your lawn. Maybe. Made up, I'm just imagining. So you, as a homeowner, don't want your own land flooding your front lawn.
Right.
So you want to put a culvert or some kind of thing in at that road to get rid of the water, so it
Okay,
doesn't
no.
flood your own lawn.
Yeah, I understand that. I was just reading the words
Right.
that related to or was referencing a section of road, and I'm thinking to myself, who
Right.
is the permittee in that case?
Right.
Where you've got a whole section of road.
A section of road could be 50 feet, 25 feet.
Right, it can be the amount, it could be,
Yeah.
6 feet all the way, 6 feet wide all the way across the road, to drop a culvert pipe in
Yeah.
to drain your hillside off into the lake instead of your front lawn.
Okay.
That's what happened in the Edwards case. He had to dig up.
Right. He had to pay for that.
Yeah.
Right. He paid the town to do that. He didn't do it. He was the permittee.
He was the
just
permit-
paid the town to do it.
Yeah.
Edwards, 3 years ago, up on
North
North
Shore,
Shore Road, he
Oh, yes.
he dropped a culvert in to
Yeah.
help with drainage.
So I just can't go out and tear up the road and throw in a culvert and all that stuff.
Not without a permit.
And I am the permittee in that case.
Then you would be the permittee. If you wanna go ahead and pave a section of road in town,
Yeah, we'll
Go for it.
How to do it.
more than happy to make you a permit, you just
Thank
follow
you.
the tracks.
I appreciate it.
Well, even right now, you need to go to the road agent and get permission or talk to them about what you want to do.
Right,
Plus, this makes it very,
right,
well,
explains all
I'm
the
just
rules.
curious what initiated, make it this formal, you know, Rod?
I don't, because it was already in place when I came on, and we were beginning to just reviewed it and opted to pass it on to the planning board for their suggestion.
This is in place now?
I don't think so. It says on the back that it's going to be in place in October, but it hasn't been formalized by the board of selectmen unless I missed something.
Yeah, okay, so
It's not in
somebody,
place.
somebody thinks you ought to have this.
Yeah.
Okay, hold on, I got a issue here. Organization. Several pages in, 1825. Paragraph E. And after that, the way it's organized is wrong. In case of major excavation, the permittee, as a condition of permit, shall agree to the following insurance, : F is not the next paragraph, it's part of paragraph E.
Yeah, it should be a
So
book.
E1.
Right. Or something like that. And I don't know how far that goes. I think it's just the next paragraph, in the next section here. The comprehensive general liability insurance paragraph, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 bullets,
And
I
so-
think is paragraph E1. And then G is F, because it's talking about minor excavations, this separate item.
And H is.
Permittee shall carry workman's comp, blah, blah, blah. I guess the 1, 2, 3 is correct for that new paragraph F, if that's how they want to talk about it. Because they're talking about insurance on behalf of all independent contractors. That's the same workman's comp kind of thing.
Go over that with Scott.
So that's what that looks like.
Good catch.
So then F, G becomes F, H becomes G, and then 1826. Right?
Yep, good catch.
Also, on that very same paragraph, comprehensive CGL with limits not less than $1 million per occurrence, bodily injury, million for property damage.
Yeah.
And auto liability insurance has nothing at all to do with this situation. Auto liability insurance has to do with auto liability, your liability, mine. I think that's a misnomer. CGL, Comprehensive General Liability, covers us if we were to, if the road work involved was such that I damaged my vehicle,
Yeah.
okay, in passing by
Yeah.
the construction, or a flag waiver was not there who warned me that there was a pit and I drove into it.
Yeah.
That is the CGL aspect, but auto liability insurance is not involved whatsoever.
So you're saying just strike auto?
I would strike the word "and auto liability insurance" with not less than $1 million per occurrence. That part of the sentence, auto liability insurance does not come into play at all. The CGL policy that the permittee carries with the town as an additional insured covers damage to your vehicle or mine, should we stray into the construction at no fault of ours. Our own auto policy would cover damage to our vehicle if if we did not obey the flag waiver, for example.
Yeah. Asking just because I'm curious, what if there was a lawsuit that had to do with damage to your vehicle as a result of it? Would this insurance be necessary for that?
Well, sure,
Just in
if,
general.
let's assume that you were the permittee and you were going across the road with a culvert. And I drove along and I damaged my vehicle because of that construction. The comprehensive general liability policy covers that, okay? Because you are, as permittee, you are at fault. I am not at fault.
I wonder why they even included that.
I don't know.
I'll pass it on.
Yeah.
Good thought.
You taking notes on this?
Just question, Ron, just question that, just to make sure that I'm correct in saying that. I think I am.
Well, once again, it could also mean something different from how it reads.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. I guess in the next paragraph, if minor excavations require workman's comp, why do major? You know, maybe it's already implied somewhere else, but
the workers' comp insurance covers a worker should that person be injured on the job.
right,
It matters not whether it's major or minor. If
that's
that, if
right.
that-
That's my point. Why, if it's required for a minor, what shouldn't it be required for major?
Yeah, of course, and it automatically is included if you are hurt on the job,
Right.
regardless of the nature of the job. Workers' comp takes care of your injuries.
Right. Right. Yeah, I understand workman's comp. That's why I don't understand why it's not required for major excavations.
You just want to say
Paragraph above.
all excavations?
That's what I'm wondering. Shouldn't workman's comp be all?
You could delete the first few words. You could delete "in the case of minor excavation defined as less than 100 feet."
Right.
The,
Just say the permittee.
delete
permittee
those
shall.
words. The
Yeah.
permittee shall carry
Yeah.
workers' compensation, including employer's liability.
Yeah.
Start there. Start with the word "the."
Now, and I'm not disputing that because it sounds good, but if I'm the permittee and I've hired a construction company, does the construction company have workers' liability?
And you, as the permittee, will say to the construction company, have your agent send me a certificate of insurance,
Yeah.
which verifies the fact that you have the requisite insurances, liability and
I
workers'
don't
comp.
really want to pay for that if the company's.
Oh, no.
I'm hiring.
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
You just ask them for a certificate of insurance.
Yeah. That applies to major or minor.
Absolutely.
I
It
think
Numbers
matters
1, 2.
not.
Numbers 1, 2, 3 following that are absolutely relevant. I think you nailed that. Just X out the first part
Yeah.
of that new paragraph F in the case of minor. They don't need that.
Good, that's good.
Okay?
I think, look, I'm not speaking for the board, but I think we'll be back to some normalcy by the end of December,
Season.
when we get to this. So I'm glad we finally got a chance to go over it.
Yep, that's the end of that. I think it works.
Well, I mean, you could go on, wherever you're talking about insurance in one, I don't want to belabor this, but the permittee shall be required to provide all insurances on behalf of all independent contractors. That's not the way it works. the way it works is the permittee says to the independent contractor, have your insurance agent send me a certificate telling me that you are insured. So, I mean, I haven't read all of this stuff, but.
Well, that's good, shall be permitted, shall be required to be provided with all insurances on behalf of the independent contractor.
See, in section 2.
Well, hold on, let's, 1 second. It might be quick solution here. The permittee shall be required to provide to the town of New Durham all insurances.
Says that in 2.
No. The,
Proof of.
Yeah, here's the
proof.
thing.
What about proof of?
Yes.
of course.
Read
Yeah.
number
How about that?
Absolutely. Sure.
Proof of.
Yes.
The
Proof of.
permittee shall be required to provide to the town of New Durham proof of insurance on behalf of all independent contractors.
Yeah,
Read number 2,
Right.
because that covers that. Insurance certificate is evidencing the coverage are to be furnished to the town of New Durham.
Yeah. Yeah, so do we need number 1 then?
pretty much, yeah.
Do you?
Well,
The way
you
it's
could-
written? Or,
Well, you could almost delete number 1 altogether.
right,
Because number 2 says insurance certificates evidencing the above coverages.
Well,
Take
Yeah.
out the word above.
let me be tedious a minute. In the first one,
Well, right,
the
right.
permittee is
Maybe.
responsible for doing this, so that needs to be included there somewhere.
Yeah, the permittee.
Is
the
responsible
permittee
for
making
ensuring,
sure that there's insurance. Right.
right,
He doesn't, the permittee doesn't have to have the insurance himself,
right.
but he has to make sure that insurance is being provided.
What about,
well, here's the part I think is important, if it's just said, number 1, the permittee shall be held responsible for any modifications in insurance requirements as they apply to independent.
right, that's what I was wondering about. Do we just cut the first phrase off there? Or do we still say something? For any modifications, the permittee shall be held for all insurance, responsible for all insurance,
No, the,
for proving all insurance.
well, sure, but now, Rod
But then-
is talking about the second half of that sentence on number 1, and shall be held for responsible for any modification of these insurance requirements. No, if the insurance requirements are gonna be modified, that's up to the Board of Selectmen to modify the requirements. The permittee does not have any
Shall be held
responsible.
responsible for any modifications
No,
of these
permittee is
requirements.
not responsible.
Has the town attorney looked at this?
I don't know.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, the permittee doesn't
I will make sure it does.
Board of-
make modifications to insurance requirements.
Absolutely. That, the whole section number 1, I think, could be deleted. And number 2, it says evidencing the above coverages in the paragraph F.
Right, right. Insurance certificates evidencing, coverage, I don't know how you want
The
to
above
word that.
coverage is plural.
Insurance certificates evidencing coverage, I don't know why you want to,
The above coverage is plural.
well, what if we're getting, but the thing is, we're getting rid of, yeah, the beginning paragraph though, the $1 million
Yeah,
thing.
up top.
Right, okay. So get rid of 1. We get rid of 1 completely.
Mhm.
Insurance certificates evidence coverage or above coverage are to be furnished to the town of New Durham by the permittee, right?
First,
Town of New Durham by the permittee.
furnished to the town.
Is you rewriting?
I'm rewriting it too.
Yeah.
I'm editing it too.
I just have one question, and I really like the way you think. So let me ask this. Do you think this was originally written, and I don't know a lot about this, that the permittee shall be held responsible for any modifications in these insurance requirements as they apply to independent contractors? that was intended to mean if independent contractors have any change in their insurance.
The independent contractors have provided a certificate that outlines their coverages and the effective dates.
Right.
So,
But if that was changed by using the word modified, the permittee would still be responsible for telling the town or someone that the insurance had changed?
well, the permittee knows how long the construction is gonna last. It's gonna last a month or however long. You look at the certificate of insurance and you look at the effective dates, and the effective date, if the effective date of the policy is,
Or ends
comes
before the
due
contract?
prior to the end of the contract, then it's up to the, town of New Durham, who issues a permit, to say, hey, you want this coverage, you want this project to go through the 1st of July, but the contractor's policy effective date ends on the 30th of June. You've got to get back to that guy and say, I need a revised certificate. So it's the town that looks at the effective dates on the policy and the construction date.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm wondering if they've written this to put that responsibility back on the permittee.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's.
I don't know, because the permittee really, well, the permittee would get a copy of the certificate of insurance, as would the
Yeah.
town.
Yeah. So if he didn't bring that to the attention of the town,
Conceivably.
yeah. Well, anyway, I'll bring that up for discussion. So,
Yeah.
So I think I've got all of this straight now.
Yeah, okay, I think our comments certainly get their attention as where issues may be. They're gonna send us to council anyway.
Yeah.
He'll look at that kind of stuff too. So, hopefully we know that.
Not gonna look
It's
trying.
already 9 o'clock and we barely started, so. Who wants to go?
I had nothing new to say because I left what I was doing with
Right.
John given the suggestion that we
Yeah.
have him in to talk to us.
Right,
So I can be off the
okay,
agenda.
okay. So we have, Bob's here, I want to talk to you.
Okay. I didn't bring my notes with me, but I believe, going through it, so I don't think anything changed on the first page.
Yeah?
Now we're talking about non-conforming buildings, or?
This is the
Yeah, the
woodlots.
stuff.
The woodlots.
Woodlots part of 9.
So, yeah, the non-conforming buildings.
Okay.
Land
That
additions, yes.
Yeah,
Second page remains the same, so it's the third page. So, based on our discussion last time, it was suggested to make 2 options for woodlot, removal from woodlot status. The first remains unchanged, and then the second one changed. I don't remember what it read before, but now reads a merger or a lot line adjustment following a finding that the woodlot meets current zoning requirements. Effectively, it's the same process between the option A, just to create a building lot outright, or to do the second.
right.
There's a situation that rose from the last boundary line adjustment that you did to the woodlot. He sold 5 acres to the abutter.
Right,
That land was in current use. You never had him remove it from current use before doing the boundary line adjustment. You were adding it onto a lot that's not in current use and does not meet current use requirements.
So it shouldn't be in current use.
That 5 acres can't be in current use.
Yeah,
right,
So somebody has to pay the penalty to take it out of current use because it was current use land when it was part of the 32-acre lot.
I'm not sure it's our
I thought it was.
our jurisdiction to say who pays that. I mean, that's
that's
a
a-
landowner's issue in the town.
yeah, it's
That's
assessment.
like-
Actually, I think it's in the RSA,
Yeah,
who pays.
So the town should look into that.
Well, the town could have said you have to take this 5 acres, the assessor could have figured the penalty, but you guys allowed the boundary line adjustment before it was actually removed from current use, that was my point. So now there is, and it's been sold, yet it's still listed as current use, so now he's had to change that value to a non-current use value, because those 5 acres went to a 2 acre lot, making it a 7 acre lot, it does not qualify for current use.
Right,
Okay, so he's reducing the big lot by 5 acres.
right.
But
that's,
somebody has to pay the penalty on that 5 acres.
Yep, yeah, no, that's
Well-
not, that's true, but that's not our problem, sorry.
Yeah, if we have
That's,
other,
that's the assessor's office issue.
yeah, when we have
It's
lot
town's
line,
fault.
when we have to deal with lot line adjustments, I don't know if we've ever run into anything like that, but I don't recall it. And that's not, I'm not talking woodlots here, but just lot line adjustments.
Yeah,
I don't ever recall anybody bringing up whether or not things are in current use. They just ask for
Right.
a lot line adjustment.
right. And however, whatever the lot line adjustment does to the value of the property or properties, that's not our jurisdiction. As a planning board, we don't decide what penalties there may be or what the new assessment is.
Okay, the assessor and I were talking about it, and he wanted me to bring it up because you okayed a boundary line adjustment that allowed 5 acres of current use land to go into a non.
Yep. An assessor needs to figure out the changes.
He can
and
figure out the
whoever.
change of use and the penalty, that's not
That's,
the issue. He
Okay.
just didn't know if maybe it should have, those 5 acres should have been removed from current use before you actually allowed it to become part of another lot.
If
That
it's
was
a
the
stat,
question that was asked.
if it's a statutory requirement, it should be put in the checklist and it can be taken care of at that point.
Yeah.
But,
I honestly don't know.
yeah.
I looked at it and I went, I don't know.
I don't,
I don't know.
yeah, I don't,
I do know that I knew it was in current use because I made that known to the person who gave us the application
Right.
for the boundary line adjustment. I said, please make sure the owner is aware, this land is in current use and that 5 acres is no longer going to
Right.
qualify.
I mean, there's no language about current use in any of the zoning ordinance.
Okay,
So that's not,
we'll keep it all in the
that's not our ball.
Okay,
And the buyer
he just wanted me
pays
to
the
mention,
penalty.
to see if it was something that should be.
The buyer pays the penalty, not the seller. It's the buyer that pays the
Yeah.
penalty.
Well, it depends when the merger was done before the property was sold, so the current property owner, whoever the current property owner is, when the boundary line change happens.
Right, it was the owner of the current use land that
Right,
came to you for a boundary line
right, because he lost
adjustment.
5 acres of current
Because
use.
he lost 5 acres, he sold off 5
Right.
acres of land. So is it him that has to pay the penalty or the person who purchased it?
No, the person who purchased it does it.
Now, the
Yeah.
other 5 acres, has that been bound to
But
something, so he
I
has
agree.
10
It has
acres
nothing to
now?
do with-
It's not, it's not a problem.
It's only
Forget it.
7.28 acre lot.
Then it's not qualified for current use.
Right,
Right.
so
That's
5
why it
acres
has
have
to
lost to current use,
If
so,
he already had 6 or 7 acres and he was adding 5 acres that were already in current use, he could keep them in current use because he'd have a 10 acre lot and he could say, I'm putting my other 5 acres into it.
right, I guess my question is when
He's lost.
Who
current
owns-
status of all that.
there's a
Right.
boundary line adjustment, right? There's a 30 acre odd current use lot. There is a 3 or something acre
2 or
lot,
3,
2
yeah.
acre lot. 5 acres from the 30 odd acre lot were added to the 2 acre lot.
Right,
Who owned the 2 acre lot?
the abutter. It's not the
That-
same owner.
But
That's
no, it
what
is, but that's what matters. When the act happened is who gets to pay it.
Right.
Okay,
Whoever
so-
owned the 2
so
acre
we
lot
did the
that
boundary
accepted the 5 acre of current use land has to pay that. The owner of the 2 acre lot who accepted the 5 acres of current use land into his lot as a boundary line adjustment, he has to pay it.
Okay.
He can pass that on to the person that he's selling it to if he's got the guy in his
Or
pocket.
that he's buying.
That's
it.
fine,
He's-
but it's his land at that moment.
It was his land after you did the boundary line, just
Right,
because he's
it's
buying that land from the 30 acre person.
Right, but the owner of the 2 acre lot is accepting the 5 acres of current use
That's
land.
why
He pays
The
it.
boundary line adjustment plan was not recorded until the same day as the deed selling the 5 acres to
That's
this
not my
town.
problem.
But I'm just saying that it was a question that.
If the owner, if the new owner is, that's what I'm saying, if the new owner's got
I
the,
don't care.
you know, the original owner of the 2-acre lot has a new buyer in his pocket.
Right. I told the
He can
assessor
pass
to
that
write
on
up
if he
the
wants to.
land use change application. and
That's
tell
still
me
not our
when.
problem. Yeah, it's still not our problem. It's the owner of the 2-acre lot that has to pay that.
I was just asked to mention it to you to see if it was something you needed to be concerned about.
No, I'm not concerned about it.
Okay.
You already said that.
It's not bad. So, next. There was something in this I wanted to change. Something
Well,
in-
while you're thinking, the only other thing that got changed was under the definition, the board had asked that, that a section be added. It's in a different font there. No dwellings are permitted on such lots, basically taken from, or woodlot or agricultural lots.
Oh, I know what I wanted to do. Paragraph D, we didn't change it before, but in rereading it, I wonder if we want to kind of break that up into a couple of numbers. Like the previous paragraph, paragraph C is broken off into a couple numbers. Any lot designated as woodlot or agricultural lot may continue to be used as woodlot. Such a lot may be used for harvest timber, agriculture. When a law is used in this fashion, like exempt from requirements, period. I wonder if we want to go number 1. A 50-foot right-of-way, providing reasonable access is considered frontage. Houses or camps are not, I wonder if that's 1. 2, houses or camps may not be built on these lots. I don't know, I just wonder if we want to break that up a couple times.
Good.
Because it's a long paragraph.
It is. When I put it in there, it's effectively from, in the, what's permissible now, and I changed it, so it was past tense, so I changed the
Right,
tense.
I just wonder if, for clarification, if we just want to break it out a bit to make it easier to read.
Sure.
I agree with that.
Define what a woodlot is, right? In the first couple, 3 sentences.
What if you just put a period after from the frontage requirement, skip the specified in table 2 part?
Right,
Because then you're going into minimum road frontage and that's.
right, that's what I said, right.
So,
Minimum
here
frontage
you-
requirements, stop. Number 1, a
Okay.
50-foot road, 50-foot wide right-of-way, okay. 2, houses or camps may not be built on these lots. You might be able to include the next sentence, I don't know. It's the same topic. No dwellings are permitted on such lots, but campers and camp trails may be present. That's kind of the same idea, so you might be able to include that. Then 3, best management practices apply. 4, no new woodlots after 2018. Something like that, I don't know, you can play with it a little bit,
Okay.
see what makes sense. Do something like that. That's fine.
Now I have a question, Bob. Supposing someone wanted to take land out of lot status and merge it to their property to make it a conforming lot.
Yep.
Because what you're saying is a merger or a lot line adjustment following a finding that the woodlot meets current conforming lot zoning requirements. Is there any provision for just adding that to a lot, to maybe a non-conforming lot to bring it to
Yeah, that
conforming
does-
status?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, that language doesn't make sense, does it? You wouldn't want, if you have a woodlot that meets current zoning requirements, you wouldn't really want to merge it. There's no reason to. No good reason.
What if you put meets or will meet current?
Yeah. Something like that. You gotta,
Because
yeah.
then you're saying that with the lot line adjustment, it will.
Right, by making a lot line adjustment, your woodlot is now a usable lot.
That's what I intended.
That's what you intended, so,
Right.
change the language a little bit here. Yeah. A merger or lot line adjustment that, converts or transforms the woodlot into a conforming lot according to zoning requirements or something like that.
Mhm.
I don't like my wording there, but that's the idea. Right? Dot had a similar idea. So what was your language?
I don't know.
Okay.
See, merger or a lot line, which would result,
Yeah,
In the woodlot.
in the woodlot meeting current conforming lot zoning requirement. I like that better. So, I wonder if this whole thing can be rewritten in a more concise format, because A through G in both paragraphs are identical.
Mhm.
Can you somehow do a 1 or 2 and then 3?
Why don't
Or
you just say
something?
meets zoning requirements as above?
sure, because these are identical, aren't they?
Yeah.
Mhm.
As listed above.
The
Or listed in one.
A through G reads exactly the same in both paragraphs.
Right. Right. Woodland.
You could just say as in one above.
Something like that,
Yeah.
yeah. In order for a woodlot to be removed, a woodlot designation to be removed, such lot must meet the following requirements, A through G. Right? I don't know. You only removed a public hearing, that's right.
What if you listed the 2 ways and then put the A, B, C, D, E, F, G?
Right, because the
Because it
woodlot, the
says
woodlot
up here,
could.
it has to be in one of 2 ways. 1,
Right,
following a finding. 2, a merger of lots.
right. In both
With the
cases,
zoning requirements, A, B, C, D, E,
right,
F,
in
G.
either case, the following zoning requirements are required.
Right.
Mhm.
Yeah, you could do it that way. And 2, you've got your woodlot can only be removed by public hearing in 2 ways. And then you've got A and B is 1 and 2.
1, 2.
And then paragraph 3, and in both cases above, the following zoning requirements are needed.
Yeah.
The
A,
parcel
B,
must
C, D,
meet,
E, F, G.
the parcel must meet the following zoning requirements,
Right.
A through G. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Let's try that. We have a definition of woodlot already, do we not? Or do we?
No, we,
We don't? That's, okay.
no, it's just built right into the permissible,
Okay.
so actually, what we have for woodlot is effectively D. That's what woodlot is right now.
Right, okay. Okay, so we include that definition also. Okay. All right, I think that can work. With that. Laura, did you print out Jeff Allard's trailers thing that I gave you? Do you have that?
Yep. It's the only one that's not, doesn't
All I
have red on
have
it.
is
Only
the-
got 1 page.
Overlay district.
And there was no red. He didn't do
Okay. Oh, So you,
It's right there.
okay.
So do we need a motion that this section is?
We should probably wait till we get the revisions
Okay, oh, wait, okay.
before we say that.
Do we remember what date it is we're supposed to have a hearing by?
No, not offhand.
I don't have my SB
It's in there somewhere.
It's December. We need to, how far ahead do we need to set those public hearings? 2 weeks?
2 weeks, yeah, we can have it.
Usually it's early in January.
Yeah. Yeah, so we have,
We really have to move it at our next meeting.
yep,
You know,
we've moved a couple, we moved
Yeah.
dots, so we can get going.
There's your calendar.
Alright. Petitions. January 4th, last day to post and publish notice for a first hearing
Right.
on January 15th, proposed adoption or amendment of zoning ordinance. So all our amendments have to be ready to be posted by the 4th of January.
Ideally, we should do it before that.
Right, in
Because
case
you
we
get
need-
bad inclement weather and who knows what.
Right.
Everybody's sick.
So, we may need another meeting this month. We may have one more meeting this month. 4/3, Thursday the 4th, we'll have our first Tuesday, the 2nd. Do we really wanna meet then? Asking now, because that'll be it. That'll be our first regularly scheduled meeting, first Tuesday of January.
Wouldn't we
Which,
be scheduled for the 19th?
Yeah, right now, December 19th.
Yeah.
So we have,
Two, you have.
We have-
and two.
but that's what I'm asking though, do we want to meet on January 2nd? First Tuesday of January? Everyone agree to that? You're gonna be here?
I'm not gonna be here.
You're not gonna be here. I don't know offhand if Jeff is gonna be here or not.
No, I think Jeff is here.
I think so.
I think
He
Jeff's
is
gonna
here,
be-
and then when I come back, he leaves on this Appalachian
Yeah,
thing, yeah.
okay. So we can keep discussing these things. Your stuff is already done. So you don't need to be here for that. Your definitions and things we've already moved those. So we have 2 meetings. I guess we find out, on the 19th where we stand. We decide on the 19th if we're gonna need another meeting to finish beyond the 2nd.
when you say finish, is it,
That means all our amendments have to be ready for public hearing
yeah,
by Thursday, January 4th.
do you have a schedule, of things that we're supposed to be reviewing? And are you checking them off as we go along? Or is it just as we get done certain parts? You see what I'm saying? Do you have a schedule of work to be accomplished? Does this board have a schedule of work to be accomplished by a certain date? Or are we just going to put forward the work that we have done to date?
I think we pretty much kind of settled on what we plan to do. There is an item I had said I was gonna try to put a tiny houses amendment forward. I don't know if I'm gonna get to that or not. There's a meeting in Manchester this Friday that I'm going to discuss that. To help me, figure some of that out.
I only ask for my edification.
Right.
I'm not aware of.
Right, because Dot's definitions are done. Bob's, woodlots is almost done. We haven't gotten to Jeff's stuff, but I think his is almost done.
And it was a list that you guys discussed what,
Right,
Areas
that's
you
it,
wanted to work on.
that's our list. Dot had some things, Bob
Yeah.
had the woodlots, Jeff's overlay district and RVs, and I was gonna try and throw together something about tiny houses. And
So
that
this
is
is
what
something-
that is the list.
This is a list you drew up some time ago.
Right. A month or so, not a long time ago, but a month or so ago, just before you came on. We
If we
kind of came
don't,
up with
if
it.
we don't have time to meet with John, what we talked about, I could just go ahead and insert, or we could wait on that.
As far as.
He wanted some tightening up of the, what do you call them? The definitions of building
Of the building code, yeah.
codes, yeah.
That's for his,
That's
building
what he-
regulations
Well,
though,
he feels
right?
as if some of them.
That's his
They're-
building regulations though, right?
Yeah, they're intended.
Building regulations don't go to town
They're-
meeting, we can change
okay.
them anytime.
Then you're all set.
Building regulations can be changed anytime. So we don't need to
And
worry
they're
about
not really changes, they're more or less creating definitions that are better
Right.
understood.
it. If you could talk to him and come up with that language,
Well,
that we'll get
well,
to it.
Well, I did
But-
that, but then the discussion evolved into, we maybe need to hear more directly from him,
Right.
so we were gonna have
And-
him come to a
And
meeting.
he would have been,
Usually
if he's
the
had a
10th,
family
so-
residency.
Okay. Why don't we hold off to him till after the 4th?
Sure.
So we can just,
Yeah, we can do that.
we can,
after.
building
That's a good
regulations can
idea.
wait a
Good.
whole month.
Because we have to get the warrant articles
Right.
Right.
That
to
has to get done.
Scott, so he can get them
Right.
written
So-
up and you guys can.
So I'm gonna focus on these tiny houses thing. They're kind of, tiny houses aren't necessarily that complicated, but there are a couple of idiosyncrasies that I need to figure out. No one in New Hampshire, as far as I can tell, has much of any language on them at all. They basically call them RVs.
It's a relative.
There was a story in the.
They call them RVs and they just throw them that way.
I've got a book on tiny houses. Have you seen a book? It's that thick on tiny houses.
Regulations
No,
regarding
no,
them,
no, no.
build one.
No, just, it's just a
Just on what they are.
it's just a book.
Yeah, I mean,
Book.
there's 100 books on how to build one
Okay.
and such, but that's not what I'm worried about.
And if I get a chance to
Yeah,
speak
but
a
he
little
doesn't,
bit
he
later,
doesn't have.
I have a few things to put on the table that you might want to consider
That's
for
okay.
including.
Okay.
That's what it is.
Okay. So,
We
that's-
have so much time.
yeah, let's,
And when you're doing tiny houses, would you do yurts as well?
I guess I would sort of try and.
I
I mean,
think
I think
They're-
they might come under the same, because they're
They,
not on a.
they do and they don't. There's, you know,
they're
Tiny
movable.
houses are on wheels and can be.
Not necessarily.
No, they don't
They
have
can
to be, but they can be. I
Right, that's the
see
problem.
somebody hauling a yurt down the road.
right, that's the problem. Sometimes tiny houses are on wheels and that's why people throw them, in, call them RVs and just leave them there.
Yes,
Let
kinda
the
like
regulations go to RVs and figure it out from that
Kind
point.
of like what
But-
Humphrey
Kinda
Bogart
but
does.
they're not
chips
relevant,
with a wagon.
But that doesn't work for us because RVs can only be on shorefront for a few weeks out of the year. That doesn't work.
Are you looking at tiny houses as being ADUs,
Maybe,
that they would come in as?
maybe. I don't know. That's the problem I'm having. There's a lot of gray matter. It's not defined.
Maybe
that's the
this
problem
meeting
with
this
it
week
all.
will help with some of that.
Yeah, that's the
Back with
problem with
better
it all. It's not clearly defined. Tiny houses can be on wheels, so they can be treated like RVs. They can come and go on a whim. But they can also be built on a foundation and are stationary.
Is there a square footage requirement?
No, but they're generally less than 500 square feet. Currently, we don't allow a building under 500 square feet.
The building code.
The building
doesn't
code
allow
doesn't.
under
So
500 feet.
we need to figure out that. It's not an easy thing, but I would like to try and get it done. I just don't know if I'm gonna be able to.
Tiny houses.
I've thought about it a lot, but I haven't put any language down because I'm still trying to figure out where the limits are.
And no other that's,
Not that I've seen.
like looked, yeah.
I know several different people that are building a tiny house on their current property. They're not living in it, but they're building one. And they're trying to find a place to put it, and they can't. Because no one
Because of the
allows that.
size.
Nobody allows it.
Because it's so small. I think it's about 280 to 300 square foot on wheels. So
And-
they can't figure out anyone that'll take it.
Right,
In
and the
town, they'll
International
take it.
Building Code says they have to be a minimum of 500 square feet.
Right.
Living
And you have width requirements on, over the road. I mean, it can only be, what,
Right.
8 or 10 feet
Limitations
wide
for
or
that,
whatever.
right.
Yeah.
So if it's 400 square feet and it's 10 feet wide, that means it's 40 feet
Right.
long.
Right, exactly. You can't be that big. So it just doesn't work. So we'll see. I may have to just let it slide, but I'm gonna try. So, let's try and get through, Jeff's things here. Let's go, I don't know where you wanna start, pick one, Maramine Lake's in my hand, so. I know you wanna talk about a couple things, Paul, and I will give you a chance to do so. But let's just get through this first. Yeah, I know, it's already pushing 9 o'clock, past 9 o'clock. So, I'm just gonna look at his red text and read it through and see if it makes sense. Limits watershed to land and topographic map titled Maramine Watershed Overlay District map that is available from the land use office. Okay.
Well, these are revisions that we discussed last meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, do we have such an app?
No,
No.
that's a new overlay district. You haven't
So we
had-
need a new map.
You haven't had a map done.
So let's talk to Stratford about making the map. Now, we never, did they ever get back to us about the other thing?
No,
You wanna?
she said that, you know, the last time I heard from her, she had somebody starting to look into it, but they were all pretty busy right now. She didn't know how long it would take to get an answer.
Welcome again.
I will. And I will mention this.
And this one too. We can give them the boundaries. It's just a topographic, it's just a topographic peak to peak
Okay.
thing.
Let me write me a note here.
So they should be able to whip that off easy.
They can,
We had the data already.
they can crank that out.
They can whip that off easy and just give the title, blah, blah, blah. That's something they should be able to whip off in a couple hours at most. Living subdivision trees.
What was the other thing I asked?
No, that was, what was that other thing? That was, it wasn't the ADUs, was it?
Cost for your, ADU consultants.
Right, there's ADU
Stuff.
consulting, right, it was the ADU consulting, okay.
Okay, cost for.
So we're taking out lake in paragraph C4. Shall be used not to maintain a dark sky. Okay,
Okay, your next correction is an S on provision, and if you're gonna do that, you need to change this to these.
where are you, paragraph?
Oh, down, paragraph E, the next change, number 4.
The lot boundaries? Is that the
Right.
paragraph?
And the sentences start, the last sentence, the specific intent of these provisions is to avoid as much possible continuous strip.
I think it's a strike through, so I think he did change it to singular.
All proposed.
I think the S is, he's deleting the S.
Clear
Oh,
cutting,
he is, you're right.
corridors, the outline boundaries,
He took the S.
between adjacent
S
lots.
out, oh,
Possible.
then
It's
that's
hard to see the
correct.
strike through in
Yeah.
that angle.
Okay,
yeah.
my apologies. So this
Yeah.
provision,
This provision.
okay,
The lot boundary between lots, if possible, should not be contiguous to one another, but should be also possible. The specific intent of this provision is to avoid as much possible continuous. Yeah, that's correct. It's a strike through. Yep. Okay. And just nothing on the next page. F through I is fine. That's it.
So I did have a comment.
Yep.
And I can't recall why we wanted to get rid of the Maramine Lake, to get the lake part, so it used to be Maramine Lake Watershed Overlay District.
That was the attorney's suggestion.
Because it is
It is
the
a lake.
Maramine Lake Watershed, and that's,
Right.
and it adds some confusion by getting rid of it. Maybe it's not a big deal, but under district boundary, I think it's important to make sure it does say Maramine Lake. And the point to be made is I was looking at our steep slope.
Yeah, because it's not the
conservation
river. It's not
Yeah,
the watershed of the river. You're right.
you're right.
But it's not,
It's totally different.
it almost sounds like Maramine Lake watershed, as if the water is flowing out.
Right.
When in fact, it's the water flowing
Into the lake.
But when you say lake, it sounds like it's the river. If you take out the lake, then it's.
There's both.
You know, this area is, up there is called Merry Meeting. But Merry Meeting Lake watershed would be water flowing out. And it's actually the water flowing in. So the full name would be the watershed of the hills surrounding Merry Meeting Lake.
I think that's right.
No, I think on Mary Lake watershed.
Watershed
Yeah.
is the watershed of the lake. The
Yeah.
Merry Meeting River watershed is the river that's leaving the lake.
Do it either way, you know.
But we're not talking about the river,
Originally,
we're talking about
the
the lake,
lake
so.
was not there, and then it showed up when it went to vote, and then your attorney suggested it, and I thought, well, you know, because I remember when I did the drafts, it was Merry Meeting watershed.
Cite a
But go
reason?
with, I thought, go with the attorney, you know,
Well,
because then you describe what it is, doesn't really matter.
Did he cite a reason? Was there any
No,
legal?
I wasn't there, you had your private meeting with them.
But Merry Meeting Lake, the word lake infers just that.
Right. I think we need,
That's
I think we
That's
need the
what you're
lake.
trying to protect, I think.
Right.
The district is only concerned with the lake's watershed, not the river's watershed.
And I don't know, I'm not familiar with what a watershed is, but it can be, water can be going, it would seem, in both directions, both down and up perhaps.
Well, down into the river.
It's dead.
Down into the river and down into the lake.
Well,
Sure, from the
they're down
hills.
from the mountains. to the-
Yes.
Well, here, I mean, you can Google myriad of definitions. I just pulled one off the website, and we can make our own up. But anyway, off the New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, and they're using the definition, a geographic area in which all water drains to a given stream, lake, wetland, estuary, or ocean.
That's a
So
watershed.
yeah, so we're draining to Merrimack Lake, so it's the
Yeah,
Merrimack Lake drainage
Yeah,
basin.
yeah.
So do we
Do you wanna
read?
put lake back?
We wanna put the lake back in.
So you don't have to have it on the warrant.
Yeah, put lake back in.
And I was looking at the steep slope overlay, which I think their way of doing district boundaries was really useful because they have a map too we have a map for the steep slope conservation overlay. And it'll show you in general where the steep slopes are, but it says if there's a discrepancy, the information should be gathered on a site-specific basis. So Merrimack Lake is nice in that the watershed is the mountain peaks, it's pretty easy to see. But
Right.
if there's ever a discrepancy, we can put language in here that it can be defined at a site-specific basis. So
Right.
if somebody argues about the fringe area.
Well, yeah, if there's a property that skirts, you know, up and over the lake, you know, up and over the boundary,
Yeah,
you're gonna have to get a surveyor to go from peak to peak and find the slopes, find the ridge line
yeah,
between the 2 points.
and it's a simple process, but
Yeah, but
somebody's
then-
gonna start arguing,
Right.
it's
I
pretty.
think that's good language to add in there, that's,
But that, because this is what's come up before, you know, the map, how can you tell via the map where the absolute boundary is? And a watershed is a very well-defined area, generally speaking. In the case of Merrimack, it can't be any more clearly defined. When you have flat areas where you have a lot of wetlands, then it can get kind of murky,
right.
but we're not dealing with that.
Okay, but right now, we don't have a map that's available in the
Right.
land use office.
Right.
and
So,
People are
yeah.
gonna be,
We need to get that.
I know, do you wanna keep that in here until you actually have a map? People read this, they come in, they say, I wanna see this map. I have to say, we don't have one.
In the meantime, I can send a map I've created,
Right.
and it's
Right,
gonna be the same,
we can just call that draft. Draft map.
it is a map. And it
You
does
know,
show the
For
watershed.
people that wanna see it before town meeting and soon after, until we get the official map, we'll fudge it.
Then
Sorry.
don't put the word official.
I said it. Said it publicly, we're just gonna fudge it a little bit.
Alright, so you just say a delineated topographic map, okay, as long as it doesn't say official.
Yeah.
Okay, before you turn the page, third paragraph.
Okay, so how does your language fit in with your case-by-case basis
Laura,
thing?
this is for you anyway.
Oh,
Third
where's
paragraph,
that
third
go?
sentence down.
Topographic map title.
Advantage, take the R out and make it GE.
Where is it?
Third paragraph, third line down.
Okay, take advantage.
Okay, that's just a typo.
Yeah, you have to give that to Jeff, but I don't have to stock it.
I just pulled this out of a steep slope
Well,
overlay.
actually, yeah, I do, so I can do that. I can do that.
So in the end of it,
Yeah, at the end, if we just added something along the lines, I just put here, this is from our steep slope overlay,
yeah,
referring to the map. It says, "This map is for guidance purposes only, and when discrepancies arise, the watershed boundary shall be field delineated on a site-specific basis."
yeah.
Can you
So-
email-
it
can
should-
you email that to me and I'll add it to this document?
Yeah,
Yeah,
Okay.
okay, so that's the added to the bottom of paragraph B. Okay? So we put lakes backing everywhere. I thought there was something else there was an issue with, but I don't remember what it was now. It wasn't the forest report. Wasn't there some other issue that we were having a problem with when we passed this? We knew we had to come back to it? But this is just minor language changes, there was something else in here. I just don't recall what it was now. And I'm not sure I have all my papers on this. Was it a 12-acre size? That was an issue that some people had.
yeah, that
I don't know
was,
how to change that.
I think whatever size we use, somebody's gonna.
Yeah.
That's the biggest complaint that we've had about it.
Right,
It's the most I've heard, is people do not like the idea that you have made it so they have to have a 12-acre piece of land.
right,
That's very hard. It's making it difficult.
right.
Other than that, I really haven't heard much about this.
Well, doesn't the topography of the land, or other like steep slopes and all that kind of indicate that they would probably be 12-acre lots?
Some areas, it's
Yeah.
pretty obvious, yeah.
Yeah, because you don't have enough.
Yeah, in some areas you'd have to in order to have enough room to build,
Right.
but that's not the case everywhere.
Right,
Well, we do explain it, that
Yeah,
that allows
it's,
them to put 10 acres into current use, which
Right.
minimizes the tax burden.
right,
but they don't have to put it in current use, because that limits what they can do with the land without having to pay a penalty if they wanna do
Right.
something
Right.
else with it.
If you want to sell.
Not everybody wants to put it in current use,
Yeah.
right,
so that was,
right. That's-
like I said, but that's about the only feedback I've gotten all year.
Yeah,
That's the one issue that everybody has said they weren't happy, they didn't understand it as much, they didn't approve of it as much.
right. Okay. Paul, are your questions that you want to bring related to any of these issues or not?
None of the above,
Okay.
except for maybe obsolescence, but
Okay.
in part what I worked on obsolescence, I thought there was gonna be a meeting on the 21st, and Luke has already decided on the 16th.
It was posted on the.
Yeah,
It was,
we had to
it
change
was-
that.
calendar.
it was posted, I think, like 2 days before, and I just
It was
didn't look at
posted the next day after the meeting.
Yeah, it was posted quickly.
Well,
Anyway.
I didn't know about it. So anyway, whenever you're ready for me, I'll
Let's,
start.
I think we're done with, do we want to approve Jeff's? Do we have any other comments on,
Do you wanna
Mary
wait
Lake
until it's
changes?
all written back up, rewritten with his added paragraph in it, or do you wanna vote on it now? Cause you know,
What do you think?
you want that paragraph in there.
Why don't it's pretty easy, why don't we wait on that? We'll get your paragraph added in officially and,
By consensus, we can approve it.
huh?
I said by consensus, we can approve it and just
Yeah.
do the motion next time.
Yeah, right, I think that's done, we just want to see the final language before we approve it. So let's look at, Jeff's RV paragraph, section 6. I don't remember what, he doesn't have corrective language on this.
No, he didn't, and I couldn't print, I mean, I printed everything out in color, but he didn't show, I don't know
Corrective
what
language
he
here,
changed.
so,
I know he addressed the 2 RVs on lots, more than 1 but less than 3.
Yeah.
That was one change he put in.
yeah,
And more than 2 RVs per lot by permit only.
Yep, that was new.
okay. 1 RV per lot only, regardless in the shoreline district. That's a D, not a C, right?
And I haven't had a chance to talk to the building inspector in Alton to find out how they determine the septic size in a campground, because he had surgery and has been out for the last 3 weeks.
Okay,
So,
keep on him. Keep on him.
I will try and talk to him on, I know he was back last week, but he was only in for like half a day, so
Okay.
on Thursday I will try and get some information from him,
Okay,
because that would go along.
yes. I would, in his number 2, K number 2, RVs must meet all setback requirements set forth in section 5D. I would explain that more. What is 5D? Because the number may change and then we won't find it. What is 5D? Page 30.
5D is dimensional requirements for town of New Durham, D is setbacks. Page 30.
Right.
And that's the one page that's missing.
Right, because then we want to try to get in the habit of identifying our paragraphs more specifically in case they change.
Yeah, it's helpful.
So you say 5D
Setbacks?
setbacks, or do you include both sentences
I
under
would
it?
say section 5 of the zoning ordinance, dimensional requirements for, the town of New Durham, and then, D,
Yeah.
which is the setbacks.
So how do you want to put that?
Well, do the title of section 5, which is
Section
dimensional
5.
requirements, yeah.
Dimensional requirements.
And then D is the setback requirements. Or you don't even, I guess, have to label, well, yeah, if it changes, you should.
Okay,
Number 3, no living quarters will be maintained and so forth. The second sentence, exceptions shall include the use of an RV for living space during construction of a home not to exceed 6 months. Didn't we discuss something about working a woodlot in there?
Oh, that's also.
that's a separate issue.
That's what?
That's also in the woodlot.
That language
Yeah, that provision.
exists separately in the woodlot paragraphs.
Yeah. That you can't build a home on a woodlot, but you can have a trailer for a certain amount of time.
Right,
You're
well, do you
working
want
there.
to, should we say the exceptions shall include, while working on a woodlot, words to that effect, as well as use of an RV for living space during construction of a home, or working of a woodlot, or something like that, or not?
Don't you
I
cover
wouldn't think
that
so,
under
because it's
woodlot?
under K, storage of recreational vehicles or recreational trailers. And it really has to do with storage, right?
Yeah, it's more storage than
Oh, okay, I see what you're saying.
living.
Well, then this
The
exception.
woodlot paragraph does cover that issue separately.
Well, if you're talking about storage of RVs, then why would you have usage in there?
Yeah.
Use for construction of a home, why would that be in there? Now, if you're saying, if you're assuming that storage includes the parking of an RV, while in use, I don't know.
And just parking it. In other words,
What if you take out the word storage of and just make it recreational vehicles, recreational trailers, and then make a list of what you can and cannot do with them?
Yeah, hold on.
Uh-huh.
Because you've got sleeping accommodations, I mean, you've got all kinds of stuff that
We-
don't involve storage.
Well, you could say storage and use of RV trailers.
Yep, storage and use of recreational vehicle, or you could just take away that and just put recreational vehicles and recreational trailers. Consensus?
Well, I like storage and use.
Yeah.
Storage and use, okay. Yep.
So if you're gonna say storage and use, do you then, getting back to that sentence, the sentence leading, beginning, exceptions shall include, do you get into the woodlot bit there or not?
No.
That's the,
You covered it pretty thoroughly under woodlots.
I wonder if that that exception should just be dropped down to number 6. Not as an exception, but as a use. C, RVs may be
Yeah.
used
Yeah.
Yeah.
during the construction of a house not to exceed 6 months.
Hmm.
That's good.
Just drop the whole thing down to item 6.
So you make that 6C, is that what you're
Yeah.
saying?
And, you know, it's not an exception, but you might want to allow as long as the building permit is active or something, because sometimes it takes longer than 6 months to build a home. I don't want to limit it strictly to 6 months,
Yeah.
as long as the home is actively being built.
What if you put it at,
I know, I can see that, I can see your, Yeah, I know. but people have to pay for the building permit.
Yeah.
People have to keep paying to renew the building permit, it costs money.
right, it does.
So I don't think,
What if you
In
put,
most
as long
cases,
as the
people are gonna
building
keep
permit
track.
is valid?
yeah, as long as there's a valid permit.
Mm.
Something, I don't know exactly the wording there, but
I've sat in the planning board too long, I find humor in sometimes.
Yeah. I mean, are there examples of people that have a building permit and they put up one stick every 6 months and just renew the building permit? You know, for a long time?
I can think of an example, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Pretty rare.
I suspect so.
I think that would
They do
generally,
exist.
I think that would generally work. I mean, the building
No,
inspector.
I'm not saying it wouldn't, I'm just
I
saying.
think the building inspector can say this is not active in substantial completion, right, Paul? You know, what's going on the site is not active building. The building, you know, inspector could make some declaration if it's, you know, been 3 years and they've only put up on one wall.
What is
So we've got one
Or
that's
something.
almost 7 years old as a foundation.
But there's no active building going on. They
Oh, yeah,
built the
they-
foundation and abandoned it.
They do, no, they do a little bit here and
How
there.
do they have a building permit?
They renewed it for quite a while. It's this building inspector that has said, no, you're not
Yeah,
renewing it.
alright, so there's an example.
Well, let me example.
So there is an example, they're still pretty rare.
Yeah.
There's a few.
Laura, what is the duration of a building permit? How long is that usually?
Building permit is valid for a year, and then you come in and you can renew it for a year. And then after you've renewed it once, then you have to go back to an original building permit. You have to go through the whole process again, pay full price.
The fee should
So
go
it's basically
exponentially.
good for 2 years. If
Well,
you
the
pay
renewal's half.
renewals half, yep.
So your original permit is $1,000, for example. You renew it, you have to pay another $500.
If you
In that
don't
second
finish
year,
then, and you
If you
have to
go
go back.
into the third year, you gotta start over
Paying
another
$1,000.
$1,000 or whatever.
Do you just say not to exceed 6 months unless granted a renewal?
No, I would
Permit's
say
good for a year.
use of an RV for living space during construction of a home. As long as an active, a valid building permit exists, is on file or something like that.
I thought the reason it was even 6 months, because that's where it
What
expired.
as long as building activity is taking place,
No, building
or
permit,
improvements.
Well, you know, I'm just
Construction.
thinking, when we built a camp, we built it from May to October, but then we went back to
Right.
Zap.
right, after that you may stop, because if you are doing the work yourself, or even the
Yeah.
contractor, you know, they may not want, or not be able to continue working. Or maybe you don't have enough money to finish. I mean,
Or you could say in accordance with the building permit.
Yeah.
Right, because
an active building permit.
building permits are void if there's no activity for 6 months.
Right, right.
Or within the first.
I just couldn't find a language saying active building permit on file.
Okay, so you want
Is
to
how,
not,
I don't.
during
exact-
construction of a home as long as,
Yeah, an active building permit is on file. Let's try that. See how we like it when we see the language. Okay? I guess. I'm a little hesitant on these being so strict about the number of RVs on lot size. I'm a little leery of that. I understand why we want to limit it, but I'm still leery of it.
Well, if you don't limit it, then you get into the dealers thing.
Well,
Yeah, I know, I understand, I'm
It
still
says by
hesitant
permit
about.
only, I mean, it says by permit if you wanna have more than 2 RVs
Yeah.
on your land, I mean, you can get a permit and say.
But that also means that we need to come up with a permit
I'm not a campground.
and a
And a
process.
fee, and a fee.
and a fee and blah, 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 right?
I will find out from the building inspector in Alton how they determine
Yeah.
how many on a piece of
Yeah,
land.
because we don't have any septic issues in
And
this
then
yet.
maybe you can work on this based on what
Right.
the septic requirements
Right.
are gonna be.
Right, because we don't mention that in here at this point.
Right, because we don't
About
we
connecting
didn't
into it.
have that information, and I tried to get it, but like I said, he had just.
So I have the Alton recreational vehicles thing right in front of me here. No more than 1 recreational vehicle is permitted to be occupied on a lot with an existing dwelling unit, provided it's for a period of less than 6 months in a calendar year.
One, no more than one,
No more than 1.
on
Recreational,
any lot,
With a house.
with an existing dwelling unit,
right? Okay,
okay? 6 months. If a recreational vehicle is occupied on a lot with an existing dwelling unit for more than 10 consecutive days, then the property owner shall obtain a permit from the building department. Such occupied recreational vehicle must have a domestic water supply and adequate provisions for wastewater disposal, including sewerage, septage, and gray water. Such vehicle shall not be rented for commercial gain.
okay.
And it doesn't tell you what the size septic tank, because Alton has.
They're saying the RV can't use the on-site septic, because that's what that says.
Yeah, I think so.
They cannot use, they have to have their own provisions. They can't use on-site septic at all. And that's what that language says. So they have to go down the road somewhere and dump it themselves. In the woods, wherever, off the bridge.
Great fertilizer.
Or we get a porta potty.
Okay. That's Alton's language?
Yeah.
Okay. Could you, give that to Laura before you leave so you can make copies?
Sure. Oh, I got a copy for everybody.
Huh, perfect.
I don't know.
Is that something, one thing you want to talk about?
Well, that's one I put on the side that I'm not gonna talk about, because I got many other things to. Yeah, here, we can, I just like to keep warm.
Okay, give me those.
Here, that's a good idea. Yeah, I got other things from Alton too.
Okay. Okay. So that's the extent of what he's written. So we're gonna have to think about that some more. Could you do us a favor and shoot your copy off to,
Jeff.
Jeff, sorry. Yeah. Private tent sites, oh no. I don't wanna block it out. Well, let's look at their language, you know, maybe we can use those.
Just after the-
Tents and yurts and other things.
Yeah, I was just looking at the tent site, because
Yeah.
that's been an issue that John
That's what I was
would like you
thinking.
guys to address.
Right.
That sounded pretty good, actually.
That's pretty simple. Why do they skip section B? They have paragraph, section 358, section A and section C. Where'd B go? Must have deleted it some year and they never re-alerted it. Okay. That's the end of Jeff's stuff. So, what do you have to talk about, Paul?
Okay, well, I thought I had a little bit more things that already discarded them because of the time. But I'll start out with the fact that, talking about the lake, I'm personally aware of fairly extensive cutting in front of the expanding homes in non-conforming lots of trees.
By the shorefront, you mean?
On the shorefront, yeah. And I do understand that our CEO doesn't really have any authority on it because we have not one word about protection of trees and conforming with the requirements of the state's Water Management and Protection Shoreline Water Quality Protection Act.
If it's in that buffer, they have to call the state and get their permission to cut the trees. Or it gets reported to the state and they send someone out to inspect it. Anything to do with the water is the state, not the town.
Well, that's correct. So what I would suggest, or recommend to you, that the only thing we do is have an entry in our Shoreline Protection Act that would be entitled Shoreline Buffer Zone, the State of New Hampshire Minimum Shoreline Protection Requirements for a vegetative cover as expressed in RSA and so, as they may be amended in the future or incorporated by reference. Everybody else either spells most of it out or they say incorporated by reference. So that is there, and in fact, that will allow our CEO to get involved in that. Because right now, it's all in the state's hands, and the state's got a couple of inspectors for the whole state. So
I didn't think the town could get involved.
Well, it says right there, in number 8, paragraph,
You can write it, but then we can-
any natural woodland
Right.
buffer shall be maintained.
okay, hold on. That is under, number 8 is the problem. That's my next item, because it's only in 8, which applies only to communal areas. If you look at look at 8, the beginning of 8.
Dimensional requirements, paragraph 11.
Yes, it does. It's
Development with waterfront access.
well, in
right?
No, keep on going down to 8, way down there.
B, C, D, E, F. Shorefront common areas, you're right.
Yeah, it's only for shoreline, so my second item is that reference should be struck from there, and the language they just read to you is a substitute for that, and more prominently displayed.
So you can look on it.
What that really reflects is that just like you, 2 years ago, when we were writing this stuff, we would lose track of where we are and come late December. As a matter of fact, this was done in December 1, so you're right close to that, where something that should be part of the thing is stuck under common areas. And in addition, there are typos of relative significance, because there's references to Article 20, which in fact is now Article 21.
That's why we don't do that.
Right, that's the housekeeping things
Yeah.
that we're still
Yeah.
working on. I've
Actually,
identified
don't-
several, I just haven't brought them to them yet.
So this is something for did everybody get a copy?
No.
I'll keep this one. Did you get one?
Nope,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah. And I think that's probably something that really would be helpful, because the state is responsible. The state says what you can do, and then when you look at it, there's 50 feet of total clearance on one lot that I'm aware of. While the state says you're going to leave X number of trees of such and such diameter, et cetera, that is in their regulations.
But doesn't that concern itself with the entire lot?
No, because the state requires that you subdivide your frontage in 50-foot segments, and you have to leave a certain number of trees in every 50 feet.
Yeah, there's a matrix, and you could become
Unless
less
it's-
dense as you get back, but
Yeah.
he's absolutely right, there is a matrix.
They make exceptions, and we've had several people who have come to the building inspector, code enforcement officer, and showed him pictures of trees that were wind damaged, were a threat to their home, their vehicles, their garage, so they were allowed and told
Right.
that they could remove them.
Okay, well,
If they're diseased or dead.
Yeah,
Right.
Or they're
that's why you
dangerous-
just
Or
incorporate
they're
what they
dangerous to their
say,
structure,
and then you
that's
have a
why.
voice in it.
well, does 48.3 account for that?
Pardon me?
Does the RSA 483
Yes,
account for?
oh, definitely. If you
Okay.
read that, you will see that
Okay.
diseased trees, et cetera, or dangerous trees are,
Allowed to be
dead
removed.
trees are not counted.
If you remove such a tree because it's diseased, are you required to replace it?
No.
No,
Okay.
but there are requirements for maintenance of a wooded buffer that goes for up to 150 feet.
Okay.
And in the language for non-conforming lots, the state says that you cannot destroy that area in a non-conforming small lot. You must maintain it covered.
Okay.
So you may want to take a look at the specific references that I gave you there.
Okay.
My other material is really deals with non-conforming lots, I'm really curious to see what definitions you came up because I couldn't find anything about obsolescence in the RSA, so I'm really interested. But I went to next closest kin. I went to Merriam-Webster dictionary. Did you do that?
Yeah, that did come up with a standard definition
Yeah,
as
there
well as the
wasn't-
state.
There wasn't a definition, there was a reference, and what we have in our zoning ordinance came from the state
Yeah.
RSA, that is a direct quote. And this is what we agreed on, Paul.
Okay.
Obsolescence is a reduction in usefulness, desirability, or a failure to meet current building codes because of an outdated design feature that cannot be easily changed without incurring an unreasonable expense.
Well, see, now that you read that, when you put in the current building codes, half of the houses in this town do not meet current building codes. Because you ask the people that have electrical building codes and things like that, many houses do not meet current building codes. So
Right.
then they're obsolescent. Okay.
If
Not,
they
this is
can't
not,
be
yes,
eas-
the entire, there's a difference though.
If they can't be easily changed without incurring an unreasonable
Yeah.
expense.
Right, if you have a sound structure of house, but it has poor building, poor electrical, the entire electrical system needs to be redone. That's a considerable expense, but it is not unreasonable. You're not gonna demolish a sound structure because it needs new electrical. That's, to me, in my mind, that doesn't meet that definition. If the electrical's failed, the plumbing's failed, and the foundation has failed, then you're talking obsolescence, in my book. That's how I interpret it.
The obsolescence can mean the process of becoming obsolete.
Right.
Our ordinance is actually is entitled destroyed properties, and also uses the term totally destroyed by reason of obsolescence. That's in I think B, right, in 21B. So I went with Merriam-Webster's dictionary of completion of becoming obsolete, and what Merriam-Webster says, what is obsolescence? It's the condition of no longer being used or useful. The condition of being obsolete. That's the
Right.
definition. When you talk about obsolescence, it could be a process. However, in our Article 21B, entitled destroyed properties, and actually, when you read that next sentence, it says totally destroyed by reasons of obsolescence. There's another thing that I found that may be helpful. Under in the restoration of destroyed properties, in that same B, obsolescence is treated as being equivalent to the partial or total destruction that may be caused by fire, nature, or other acts of God. Obsolescence is in effect defined also by the language of Articles 6C1, which Jeff was quoting to you at that meeting, which was applicable to conforming properties. And obsolescence of conforming properties is actually defined in our Article 6C1. Building or structure which is badly damaged, dilapidated, or unusable. That's the definition of obsolescence for conforming properties. So I think that pretty much fits non-conforming properties as well. And that's the way I would have gone with those things. Now, our ordinance permits restoration or remodeling, as you well know, and you define those. For shorefront structures, the RSA, in its chapter 43B, states, in such a case permits, quote, repair, replacement in kind, reconstruction in place, and may alter or remodel the interior design or the existing foundation. And that's probably something that you discussed last time, right? 483B 111, non-conforming structures. I can pass that on in case you want to refer to it. Yeah, don't mind what's got the big X on the back. I can always save the paper.
Whoever passes.
Yeah. There you go. So restoration or remodeling. The remodeling is a little bit vague, and in the RSA, they actually say may alter or remodel the interior design or the existing foundation.
Yeah.
And I think that would be useful to include in your definition. Now, there is a term that shows up in nearby towns, which they call voluntary destruction. In our town, the actual practice does allow voluntary destruction of non-conforming buildings and construction of a new building, frequently of increased height and volume, as long as the original footprint is not increased.
Right.
Okay, now that is contrary to the RSA. That's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th bullet, which states that a shorefront building may be entirely demolished and reconstructed, provided it is located further back from the reference line than a pre-existing non-conforming structure. And our talk about putting it on the same footprint is in contrast with this, which requires that a building that is entirely demolished and reconstructed be placed further back from the reference line. The RSA also says that it may be moved further back, 10 feet, 20 feet, or 75 feet, by more restrictive municipal ordinance. Also, our Article 21C, new buildings instructions.
Now,
This alteration and expansion of existing non-conforming uses allows states that all new construction must conform to the 75-foot setback. And our town council, in the Bailey case, had stated in writing that the part of the building that is within 75-foot setback requires a variance. This is now in the public domain because it was read. The legal counsel's statement was read by the chair
right,
at the public meeting. It's part of the minutes of the meeting.
right. That's-
But it was talking about the 14 feet that didn't.
No, he was talking about 75 feet. His letter states, if you wanted to read the letter, I can. Now that I moved it, hold on. The answer to Terry's inquiry states, the owner needs a variance from the town ordinance for the portion of the building within 75 feet of the shoreline.
Right. There was only 14 square feet of the building
50,
that was in.
half of the building was outside the 75. And the owner needs a variance from the town ordinance for the portion of the building within 75 feet. 50% of that building was between 50 and 75 feet. So he says that portion of the building, which is about half of the building, the state law only applies to the state statute, which requires 50 feet. So the applicant must conform with that law within 50 feet of the shoreline, but it must also comply with the town ordinance for the additional 25 feet. The statute specifically contemplates that towns may adopt more stringent regulations. So it's really my opinion, which is an opinion, that we're in violation of both the RSA B11 4, or IB 4, and we have not followed the town's council, and we have allowed voluntary destruction and put it on a pre-existing footing in the face of the fact that the RSA says you've got to move it further back from the existing footing. And we have said that requires I lost it now, I forgot what I was saying. Then, I was just going to mention to you that I did look at town ordinances and look for the word footprint, It's mentioned 8 times. It's never mentioned for non-conforming dwellings. It is mentioned once for the non-conforming accessory structures. But it's the only time it's mentioned in number 21. Now, I mentioned, I think it's already said something about the people, oh, yeah, I know why. We left a lot of things unsaid when we finished up back in 2000, early 2015. We discussed at great length what items should be in 21. And I was able to go back to my defunct computer and find some of the information, but I couldn't print it out. It's a computer that's been dead for over a year. And interesting enough, what never saw the light, I was sort of very impressed by this, that there was a version of 21 where we said, for any non-conforming building, no alteration shall increase the footprint or decrease its distance from the reference line,
Yeah.
which would have been very fine for the situation we're in, because it actually uses the word footprint. That removed.
But he never, the person we're talking about didn't change his footprint, and he did move the footprint closer. So
But-
none of those things, none of those violations occurred.
The
He
violation.
only, he got one variance for 14 square feet. That's it.
Well, but he needed half the house.
No, because he could rebuild the existing footprint.
Yeah, but it's got to be moved backwards from the footprint according to the RSA.
Couldn't move back, it was steep slopes behind.
Yeah.
You could decrease it.
By 50%?
Well, the steep
That's
slopes
not-
part. Well, we can discuss this at some length, but I believe that the attorney understood what it was, and yeah, let's not get into this too much, because actually there was language proposed by us in draft form, and I think I gave you a couple of them in an envelope that you should have gotten at that meeting. There were just a couple of examples of what we worked with. For instance, we worked with a staged, actually, I'm a little bit ahead of myself here, so I'm trying to say many things in a short time. The issue of volume of the building,
Yeah.
or as I think Ossipee or Wolfeboro calls it, the bulk of the building,
Yeah.
is a potential, and in Alton's case, is a violation of increased nonconformity. If you take a building and make it, they call it making it more non-conforming because you've added a second story.
Mhm.
We are totally silent on that.
Well, the height, doesn't the height limitations come in there?
The height
Building height.
limitation will allow you, the way
35 feet.
it allows about three stories on the lake side.
Up to 35 feet.
35 feet.
35.
Yeah, if on the average grade. So if you got a
Right.
fairly steep thing, we will get about 3 stories out of the building. And I think it's important to look at what our neighboring towns have done with this, and they're fairly explicit. Let me mention to you what Alton has done, and I think that's actually my recommendation. No, I don't have that. It's on the second page of this handout. We do have something called vertical expansion in our ordinances, but it's actually in Article 14 when they're talking about conforming rather than non-conforming properties. And vertical expansion of a building requires a permit from the code enforcement officer. So the question is, what kind of permit should have vertical expansion of a non-conforming building? And so on the second page, I just quote for you the materials from Alton, which are current and accurate. When it's in quotes, it's actually there the way it says. They don't use the word obsolescence. Buildings destroyed by fire and natural disaster. That nothing shall prevent the restoration, reconstruction, or replacement 3-year period of time, so long as this does not result in a new expanded non-conforming use. And expanded non-conforming use is increase in height or volume. So the next bullet is replacement of structures that are voluntarily removed. That's a title for their section, and I think we're dealing with voluntarily removed. In-kind replacement of structures that are voluntarily removed may be permitted if a special exception is approved by the ZBA. In-kind replacement means permitting replacement of the same building dimensions, length, width, and height within the same building footprint with no increase in the number of bedrooms. Expansion of structures beyond existing building dimensions. A structure may not be expanded upwards or above the existing roof line or downwards below the existing sill without first obtaining special exception from the ZBA. And the parenthetical numbers is there, section 320, A5, A6, and A7. And so I would urge you, take a look at that carefully, because that's what I think deserves your consideration. Actually number 2 is adopt the language of those 3 articles. Alternatively, or in addition, if time allows, and then maybe that's for year 2019 at this point, develop possibilities of increasing height and volume of new construction within the waterfront buffer as the structures move further back from the reference line, and this becomes less non-conforming, to be approved by the special exceptions pathway. We wound up with none of the ideas that we had. We had that particular idea and other ideas which I've written out from my defunct computer. But we actually, I believe, left it the way it is, thinking that yes, it's going to go to ZBA, and ZBA will use factors such as topography and land to figure out whether they would give variances that would be a story and a half, or 2 stories, or 3 stories, probably as you go backwards, if there is backwards to be had. And so we failed to do the job without really spelling things out, I think, because we just literally ran out of time. And most of the draft stuff I have even in January, something that's in, I don't remember what we did, but it's there, some language. But I think we have a, you know, we have a sort of serious issue, I think, in my mind, an obligation to make sure that these things are reasonable, that they protect the lake. You're loading 4-bedroom houses where there used to be a 2-bedroom, 1-story house, which I know exists. Within the last couple of years is a big increase in people living there all the time. And then with the ADUs, you can expect a little bit more.
You know, I remember the conversations very well that we had in addressing issues of how to kind of control, address, and mitigate the exploding building on the lake. The one that you're talking about, though, the one that went before the ZBA, he had had redone the whole septic system to accommodate more bedrooms, and had instituted enough water management problems that he really, in essence, made that lot less non-conforming because it did contribute far less to the pollution of the lake. But in theory, I agree with you, Paul. I think that's probably something that we should look at. I'm struggling with someone going in and buying a piece of land that has a house on it that is inadequate, with no insulation, no central heating, inadequate wiring, inadequate plumbing, and what options can we as a town offer them, and what protections can we as a town offer the lake? I mean, it really does require a balance, and that's probably something we need to look at. And I know we did have a lot of discussions about that because.
Yeah. Well, I think maybe that's another project for another year to refine them. But in the case that you're referring to, I was all in favor of giving him a variance. Of course, I didn't have a vote because I'm only an alternate, and they didn't appoint me. According to what the lawyer said, that's the ultimate issue. The house is far back, and it'll stay far back. Half of it is within the 75-foot setback already, and they did such a great job, they should be given a variance. And interestingly enough, by the way, Alton is not variance. Alton says special exception. I think we should consider being strict, but sending him in with architectural plans and where it's going to be and the lay of the land, and then structure it so that we don't try to push people out of the street, because the South Shore is all small lots. But if we allow there are buildings now that are 10 to 20 feet away from the shorefront, and according to our current policy, you can presumably build 3 stories high, and you can actually put out a 12-foot deck. And if you're at 15 feet off the shore, you're going to be almost on top of the water. You can dive in from there with the decks. We had in our language that if you were less than 25 feet away from the lake, that you could not have a 12-foot deck. I don't know what happened to it, but it's in typed form. And that's more strict than the state is. But we thought that'd be a little bit ridiculous, because we do have examples of new 3-story buildings, not 1 but 2 3-story buildings, being about 10 feet away from the lake and built about 3 or 4 years ago. I think that you need to address the issue of voluntary destruction in contrast to obsolescence and destroyed property. It says destroyed property. That doesn't mean you've taken the bulldozer and put it into the ground.
Well, you're referencing two different paragraphs, and I'm looking at those two different paragraphs, and they have different meanings.
Which one?
Your Article 6C is not talking about an existing building that has old plumbing, old electrical.
Which
talking
form
about-
are you in?
Your obsolescence. Second paragraph, you're talking, when you describe Article 6C. That paragraph is talking about more like a building that has been abandoned and the roof is caved in, or a building that was destroyed by fire and the owners just left it there. Those are the kinds of destruction caused by fire that paragraph is talking about. It's not talking about an existing structurally sound or relatively structurally sound building that is, can be occupied, but it has old plumbing, old electrical, and cannot be remodeled or repaired without extensive expense.
And I think,
It's a very different case.
Yes, it says in effect, meaning that Article 6C1 describes what, in my opinion, is obsolescence.
I don't consider that. That's not obsolete.
Building or
That's
structure that's
destroyed.
badly damaged, dilapidated, or unusable? What's wrong with that, to define an obsolete building?
I think we were maybe a little more precise because we did say a reduction in usefulness, in other words, no longer useful. And it's a failure to meet the current building codes because of an outdated design feature. It's not insulated, plumbing,
But it's not
and
unusable.
electrical.
The current building is not unusable.
And it can't
Well-
be changed without incurring an unreasonable expense. We
That's the
also
key.
did have grandfathering status of obsolescence is lost if rebuilding the structure is not completed 2 years after the demolition.
Incidentally, the word grandfather is a new word in our page document. Grandfather does not occur anywhere.
Doesn't appear anywhere else.
Pretty
Well,
common.
I
It's a pretty common word.
Yeah, it is.
Building
Well,
construction and everything
but,
else.
okay, it's slang, if you like. We know what it
No,
means.
it's not slang.
Well,
It's very well defined.
You can't find that in the ordinances. And in our ordinance, does not exist.
About the state RSA, does that refer to?
I haven't screened the whole state RSA.
I'm almost certain that it's widely used.
Well, I can
Used and
definitely do that.
understood.
I can
Yeah.
tell you tomorrow whether it's used by Alton, maybe it is. I didn't check that. Because I have Alton in my computer.
We also approved definitions approved to bring to public hearing. Repair is the replacement or mending of parts existing but in a state of deterioration with equivalent materials and for the purpose of maintaining their quality. And then we added, repair does not allow for the total demolition of the structure, so you couldn't repair this wall and then repair this wall. You cannot demolish it. And then remodel, we did modification of an architectural design, color, feature, or materials of a building. And again, we repeated, remodeling does not allow for the total demolition of the structure. And that's what you couldn't hear me saying.
Yeah, well, thank you, now I know. The repair sounded very good. Remodeling, I did point out that the Shoreline Protection Act, RSA, I can't find it, says internal remodeling or remodeling of the foundation. I'm not arguing for or against, but that's what it says. The words that are used in a number of towns and in the RSA is replacement in kind and reconstructed in place. In both of those cases, they do not allow the rise in volume of the building. And that's defined in the RSA, replacement in kind. Meaning if you started with a one-story building, you wind up with a one-story building.
All right, well,
It's late.
it is late. Why don't, hate to say it, but Dot, this is your paragraph, so if you would look over the stuff and, please.
Okay. I absolutely will.
And, tell us if you wanna make any changes.
Okay,
I'll leave it to you
okay.
to review it and come back to us. Fair enough?
Fair enough.
Never
agree.
And I, one more notice, I'm here for one more meeting.
Yep,
Yeah, okay.
okay,
So, we'll address this the next meeting.
okay.
Okay.
When is the next meeting?
December
19th.
I think we're done. Anything else? Going once, going twice?
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody want to voice any feelings?